pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're almost in the same. Is Rich not coming?
Late.
roll call.
Is this on?
Tom Collins,
Here.
Clem Wozleski, Mike Richmond,
Here.
Jim Galantino,
Here.
Margaret Gubernalty,
Here.
Mike Cristaldi,
Here.
Craig Palmisano, David Carter, Despina Hess, Remy Pelosi, Joe DiGirolamo, Rich Patterson.
This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets.
Yes.
Okay. Approval of minutes, January 26, 2017.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Approval of decisions and resolutions. Number 2-2017. Appointment of Richard Patterson as chairperson, Mike Richmond as vice chairperson, and Johanna Casey as secretary administrator. Okay. Stanley Bergman as solicitor. 04217. FCF Associates. 05-2017. College Trust. 06-2017. Kurt and Karen Heffler. 07-2017. Anat Cohen. 08-2017. Mark and Shari Rosenberg. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
That's all.
All right, our first case is Barry Schwartz, 11 South Lancaster Avenue, blocks 113.01, Lot 8 in the S25 district to grant C variances for side yard and front yard setback for a deck porch, front yard fence, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Roger?
Dan, do you want to swear Roger in?
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name and title?
Roger McLaurin, zoning officer and planner.
Thank you.
Thank you, board chairman, board members. My report is dated February 20th, 2017, in regard to the Schwartz residence at 11 South Lancaster Avenue. Background: the applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the city of Margate in order to extend an existing first floor deck porch requiring variances. The proposal is to extend the deck closer to South Lancaster Avenue and expanding the existing side yard nonconformity scales less than 5 feet. However, the proposal does meet the prevailing setback requirements for the front yard. There will also be a variance required for front yard landscaping. I've attached the zoning chart for your use. Section 3, the variance is required. Side yard setbacks porch, whereas 5 feet is a required minimum and less than 5 feet is proposed. Front yard landscaping, whereas a minimum of 60% is required and 50% is proposed. No waivers have been requested. The checklist is complete and the application is deemed complete. My comments are: there is an existing first floor porch and second floor deck already in place. The minimum setback for porches is 5 feet and the calculated average is 5.2 feet, not including the subject property, and 7.2 feet is being requested. There is no variance required for expansion towards the street. The existing deck scales are less than 5 feet on the survey provided, requiring another variance. Recommendations: the variances being sought require testimony from the applicant to satisfy both C1 and C2 criteria where appropriate. If the board finds that the testimony provided provides evidence that supports the variances, then I would recommend the below recommendations, if not they're already done, be a condition of approval. And that concludes my report for this application.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond, members of the board. Chris Balanson for Barry and Sandy Schwartz, who own 11 South Lancaster Avenue. It's identified on the tax map as Lot 8 in Block 113.01, located in the S25 zoning district. Based on my recent experience here, I know the board is sensitive to these cases where homeowners are asking for relief to go closer toward the sidewalk on these first block south houses. Hopefully to get an inch or two gain on their neighbor to the ocean side, maybe toward the beach or the ocean. And when Mr. Schwartz came to me in this instance, I rehashed that story to him and told him that the board is very sensitive to these cases. He asked me to take a look at his. I did, and I thought that this was a case, in light of the specific circumstances of this property and the way it is situated, that the board might consider this variance favorably. What results is a porch with the addition that is still well within the front yard setback requirement and still behind setback further than the neighbors to each side. So it's not a situation where this gentleman and his wife are trying to gain any view over their neighbors. They're still stuck behind them. What it truly is an opportunity to add some space to a porch, kind of a non-functional porch right now. It's 5 feet on each side of the stairs, which really, two little boxes. The addition as proposed, as P is designed, really allows that space to open up, maybe a table on one side and a couple lounge chairs or chairs with stools on the other side for better outside living at the Schwartz residence. The porch will remain uncovered. Mr. Schwartz has spoken to both of his neighbors. Both are not here. They don't have a problem with the application. And what is proposed concerning the improvement is the use of the steel cables as opposed to spindles to keep light, air, and breezes in that area not blocked off by fence. Peter Weiss designed the fence plan and can speak to the technical aspects of the application. Pete, all yours.
Pete, can you raise your right hand? I'm going to swear you in. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your name
Peter Weiss,
and your office, your business address?
101 North Washington Avenue.
Thank you.
Peter, you prepared the plan for the Schwartzes that's being considered this evening? A variance is requested or required for front yard landscaping for a deficiency of approximately 9%, 10% in that area?
10%, yes.
And Mr. McLaren did pick up a side yard setback variance of a few inches, probably based on differences of surveys, but we'll pick that up along with your testimony. Could you point that out when you go through the plan with the board? All yours.
All mine. As mentioned, there's an existing porch which extends across the front of the house. It's 5 feet deep. I believe these side additions were done a number of years ago, not that long ago. As such, being a 5-foot deck, once you put a railing on it, of course, there's not much room left over for chairs and certainly not a table. So what the Schwartzes would like to do, of course, is add about 2.8 feet towards the street on either side, leaving the steps as they are, leaving a little bit of landscaping between the step and the deck on either side, which will give them two areas that are roughly 8 foot square, which would then be large enough to accommodate a table and some chairs, and thereby making the front area a lot more livable and usable. The existing deck is 4.7 feet from the left property line, so by extending it, we need a variance of basically 4 inches for that distance of 2.8 feet coming towards the street.
That's to line it up with the side of the house?
Well, with the existing deck, because the deck steps in about 1.5 feet from the house.
I'm sorry.
So all in all, that's basically about 1 square foot that's in the side yard. The existing rear yard is mostly pavers at the moment, so what we propose to do is remove most of that and just leave a little area back here for barbecue or whatever. So that will contribute to the overall landscaping on the site. So even though we're extending the deck in the front, the project will increase the overall landscaping on the site by a small amount.
So Peter, the amount of grass we're adding in the rear yard more than compensates for the square footage of deck?
Yes.
Thank you. That's some music in the middle of that? Pete, do you think in light of the way this deck is situated as improved, should the board grant it, it will have any impact on the neighbor? And when you answer that question, speak to the location of the neighbor's houses in relation to the Schwartz's residence.
Even with the extension of the decks, we will still be more than 1 foot beyond the decks on either side, or the properties on either side, because most of the decks along that street are pushed out pretty close to the street. We'll be further from the street, yes. Yes, by more than 1 foot. And I'm showing quite a bit of shrubbery and landscaping in here, but I think the Schwartzes actually plan to be more aggressive and do more than that.
Pete, if I told you that with the addition, the Schwartz porch will have a setback of 7.2 feet, and the neighbor to the left is 5.9,
Right.
the neighbor to the right is 5.1. Does that sound just about accurate?
Yes.
So we're about 2 feet behind everybody else still, approximately?
Well, 1 foot to 2 foot, yes.
Okay.
Therefore, do you think there's any view blockage of light, air, and open space, or any other detrimental impact on the neighbors?
No.
Members of the board, that's all I have. It's a relatively straightforward case. I'd like Mr. Schwartz just to address you for a minute or two, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, if that's okay?
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz, can you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Barry, I'm not going to ask you a million questions. You can address the board and just explain to them, number one, your use of the house, why it is you'd like to expand the porch based upon the way it exists now and your lifestyle in that regard.
Sure, absolutely. Well, it's nice to meet everyone here. Thank you for your time this evening. When the house was originally built, there was a very narrow porch, just literally almost at the front door. Of course, you couldn't even put a chair there or anything at all. We've tried to make the porch somewhat usable by doing what we have right now. And in that regard, we thought, well, maybe that'll be good enough.
That was in an attempt to conform with the ordinance.
Right, and exactly, precisely. What we have found, and we have 2 young children, one's 8 and one's 4, is that with even one chair on the porch on either side, there's actually no room even to move around or anything at all. So the porch, for lack of a better word, has essentially become unusable. And certainly as my 4-year-old's turned into an 8-year-old and now another 4-year-old, it's certainly become more unusable. So this is our attempt to essentially make that possible. And I've spoken with both of the neighbors on both sides, the Rosens and the Ashers, and they are more than happy to do it. We're terrific friends with both of them. And both of them actually encouraged it. They said, stop coming over to our porch and go sit on your own porch. So, so I said, that's fine. I'm going to see what I can do about it this summer or over this winter to get ready for the summer.
And you heard me say that the porch will not have a roof on it now or in the future?
Correct. We are making no changes to the roof line. We are, as you mentioned, we're using the steel rails, assuming that this gets approved, so that there is no blockage of any views. In fact, what's right there right now is sort of these white, thick plastic spindles, which are going away. We feel in the end that this is actually going to open up the view on there as much, more, as well as adding some terrific landscaping on the front of the porch.
You propose a new landscape package to the front and then obviously to the rear where you're putting the compensatory landscaping?
Absolutely. My environmentally conscious wife insists upon it, actually.
Thank you very much, Barry. Members of the board, that's
Thank
all
you.
I have.
Anyone from the board have any questions? Okay. Anyone from the public like to speak? Okay, public portion's closed. Is there any conditions or?
That's what I was going to ask. Chris, Mr. Balanson, conditions, do you have any issues with Mr. McLaren's report or any conditions set forth? As to the no roof, that's going to be a condition of
That's
approval?
fine. Yes.
And also the, part of the plans are already include the cable railing? Or do you want-
They do not. If you'd like to include that, that's up to you. I'd rather not have that included as a condition.
Okay,
So leave options open in the future for new technology
Gotcha.
and whatnot.
How
so
about,
the conditions will be the conditions in Mr. McLaren's report, and just no roof will be a condition on the porch.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
are you moving the steps out? I mean, the plan showed the steps staying where they are. I mean,
The steps stay where they are. They,
did you want to move them out? Because there's no detriment. There's no impact on the front yard landscaping.
the answer to that is yes. We prefer to move, we would like to move them out the distance of the depth of the deck if that works with your contractor. Yes, that would be fantastic. We're trying to do it as least,
I mean, if you're here asking for this, I mean, that would make sense.
I appreciate it's a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so this is an application for C variance relief for side yard setback with a porch. They're both, I believe, existing nonconformities. Requirements 5 feet. The proposed is 0 feet and 4.7 feet. Front landscape is requirement 60%, and the proposed is 50%. The conditions are those conditions set forth in Mr. McLaren's report dated February 20th, 2017. And the other condition is that there should be no roof on the porch. So I need a motion in the affirmative for that.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Hold on, you guys have a question before we vote? Mr. Okay.
We're going to move
You
the
have
steps
to
out.
speak into a microphone, Craig, please.
I don't know whether I misunderstood the mention about the steps. I think that one of the positive things about the design is that the steps do not come out past the porch. They considerably reduce the visual mass of the projections. I think they should stay the way they are. And I think the
But
architect
technically, if
must-
they move the steps out, they do not require a variance.
Well, they still require a landscape variance.
You're putting the steps on top of sidewalk, which doesn't count towards landscaping.
I don't follow you, Roger.
Doesn't require any additional landscape.
Just move further under the concrete.
You're not reducing landscaping by moving the steps.
Architecturally, I think the way the design architect has them now is by far the best approach.
I'm just
Okay, so-
making a suggestion, so if the plans come in, they can change them then, or change them now.
I'd like to stick with Mr. McLaren's suggestion.
Okay, so when you vote on it, one of the, it's not a condition, but the amendment to the plan is that the steps are going to be out further than they exist on the current plans.
Which has nothing to do with a variance.
Right. It's not going to cause any additional variances.
Right.
All right, so we need a motion. Again, we're going to just, we're just going to have another motion with those changes made. And-
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Tom Collins?
I see no negative impacts on the neighborhood. I think being recessed in a little bit from the rest of the houses causes no negative impacts. On the positive side, I think it does meet C1 criteria for improving the neighborhood. It's going to make your front nicer. Hopefully your landscape will be nicer, and you're getting more landscape in the rear. I'm glad you didn't make a condition of that stainless steel fence, because I think you're going to find that it's not going to fit your style house. The pickets might even be better. So I vote in favor.
Mike Cristaldi?
I see no negatives on it. I think it's going to add to the front of the house and to the neighborhood, actually make the porch more usable. I vote yes.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I think the request is de minimis on the effect of the porch. I think that it still fits the pattern of the neighborhood well. There's no detriment that I can see. The neighbors are in favor, and certainly we want people to enjoy their porches in the summer, so I vote in favor.
Clem Osleski?
Well, you've already heard my feelings on the steps. Other than that, generally I have concerns with this type of application because the future effect on other properties in the block, but that goes away with this project because the rest of the block is already moved out mostly. I think the additional landscaping is an excellent feature and will offset any negatives by the small reduced quantity. So I vote in favor.
Jim Galantino?
I kind of like the way the steps are going to run out now. So it looks like they'll come out to about 5 feet closer to the property line, which will run on top of the existing sidewalk. As to the side yard setbacks, I don't think there's any problem with that. And to the landscaping requirement, I see that there's a lot more bushes and bushes going in, and I see no problem with the application. I vote yes.
Craig Palmisano?
I agree with the other board members. This house here is, once it's moved out, it's still behind the other houses on the block, so there's no detriment there. And they only have a 5-foot deck now, and I see no problem. No neighbors complained about it, so I'm in favor of it.
Mike Richmond?
I think it's a minor request. They're not asking for a front yard variance, which is good. There is going to be some more landscaping, taking out the pavers in the back, so I think that's a good compromise, and I approve it.
The application passes 7-0. Chris, would you like to sign?
Revise the plans. Showing the steps out.
They'll stand. They stand?
Yes.
Revised plans.
I was looking for your ruler.
Those the case, you know, the thing I read before the.
Oh, the agenda? Oh, we know it's on the,
Okay, our next case is Melissa DiVincenzo and Eric Homan, 7401B Winchester Avenue, Block 301, Lot 1.01 in the S30 District to grant C variances for front yard fence and possibly others. Taxes and water are current and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Thank you, board members. My report is dated February 20th, 2017. Some background. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to construct a new 3-foot-high fence within a front yard of a corner lot. The area of the fence would encompass the yard area on Fredericksburg Avenue frontage and extend to the property line, which is offset from the sidewalk by a couple of feet. The property is newly constructed and had a fence erected without permits, which was subsequently removed. The owners desire to enclose the yard with an open picket-style aluminum fence. There are currently arborvitaes planted where the fence was located. So that would be a good visual for the board to understand where the fence will be. Variance is required. Fence located within a front yard, which is a C variance, whereas no fences are permitted within a front yard, and one is being proposed. I believe the only front yard encroachment will be along Fredericksburg Avenue, not Winchester Avenue. I'll let the applicant testify to that. My comments are minimal, other than making sure that the fence stays clear of the site triangle and to avoid conflicts with the driveway. I think it's set far enough back from the property line to accomplish that. Plus, it's only 3 foot high, and it is an open picket-style fence. That concludes my report.
Members of the board, my name is Chris Balance, and I represent Eric Coleman and Melissa DiVincenzo, who are here with me tonight with their kids. They recently purchased, in November, 7401B Winchester Avenue, which is the corner lot of a two-lot subdivision. Took a couple years to complete, but is now complete and the houses are built out. It's a relatively simple request. These guys have four kids, four little boys under the age of 8. The only other people who I know crazy enough to do that is my mother and my 4 brothers, who were all a year apart until whatever. But the way the house is designed, all the yard spaces in the front of the house,
Chris, the microphone.
both on Winchester and on Fredericksburg. When these guys were house shopping, they came upon this house and thought, and this is their second house here, came upon this house and thought, that might really work out with the kids. We have a pretty substantial front yard. We can sit on the porch and actually use the house, use the porch, and watch the kids. And that area of Winchester Avenue, as we all know, is where it ends the two-sided parking in Ventnor and opens up where Marvin Gardens is, and people, you tend to step on it when you get there. So what my clients wanted to do was simply put more of a visual distraction, a 3-foot landscape fence at the edge of the grass the plan shows, which I prepared. But they're telling me now they'd like to plant on the outside of the fence, so they're going to pull it in 18 inches from what's shown on the plans. They have a little planting space. And the fact that a fence is not permitted in the front yard requires them to appear here. And rather than me tell the story, I'd like Melissa at least to back up what I said, confirm how we got here.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name for the record?
Melissa DiVincenzo.
Thank you.
Melissa, without me asking you 100 questions, relay the story as you related to me
Sure. So,
to the board.
Sure. So we've been in Margate for about 10 years. We have one of the bungalow properties on Barclay, 120 North Barclay. And it's one of the 40 by 60 lots, and with the 4 boys and friends in town and things, we were starting to feel like it was a little bit small for us. And when we spotted this house, what caught our attention was it did have nice outdoor space, which is one of the things we were always craving in our other house. It had room for a patio, it had a wraparound porch, and it had some green space, which was really appealing to us because we like to be outside. The boys have a lot of energy and like to be outside. So we spend a good chunk of our days, if we're not on the beach, we are, outside in the yard or on the porch. And so when we saw the house, it was actually being featured with a big sort of white vinyl, privacy fence on the side, which didn't appeal to us at all. We didn't want to, we wanted to have sort of the green and the openness. And we, as part of our offer, negotiated for the builder to install a fence. At that time, we didn't realize there were restrictions on that, and I think neither did the builder or the realtor. So we were pretty far along in the process when we realized that the fence was going to be an issue. We decided to proceed, in the hopes that we could get a variance, but it's really driven primarily by safety concerns for me. I mean, I worry about the kids, even if we're right there, just for them to be able to even play ball, they just get distracted. I know how they are, and I worry about somebody just, inadvertently, even my 8-year-old, who's pretty sensible, just chasing a ball into the street, and I can't be with all 4 of them at all times. So that's really what's driving it for us. And to drive the point home a little further, my 5-year-old actually did, while walking home from school with his babysitter in the fall, step in front of a van while holding everyone's hands. He had to be taken by ambulance. He had to have surgery on his foot. He was at AI Children's Hospital and, had to have physical therapy till Christmas. So it's a real concern for me.
Roger had mentioned that a site triangle be shown. And hopefully it's okay, rather than go through the cost and expense of having an engineer prepare that, I went out and staked out a couple locations from the corner back. One would be 1 car length, the other picture would 2 car lengths, and showing that visibility is quite clear up and down Winchester Avenue. Although at this location, Winchester Avenue is one way going toward Longport, so your visibility really, as you pull to the corner, would be to the left. That's not our property. There's nothing we can do about that. To the right is really not necessary to have that unless traffic pattern changes someday. But even to the right, should traffic pattern change, you can see 2 blocks here.
think he's hard.
And again, if you look at the survey or look at the plan, you'll see that I don't really think it'll be an issue backing out from the driveway, as the fence is well within, up, away from the curb to provide visibility once traffic becomes an issue coming up Fredericksburg Avenue. That's all I have.
I have a question on the survey.
Yes.
It shows the fence before it was taken down before.
Yes.
Is the new fence, the proposed fence, going to go in that same location?
It's, I submitted highlighted plans, Roger, and if I didn't, it's, the plans show a fence line. I'll pass this around.
Just in regard to what Roger said, I agree with you, and the plans we're looking at here, really, we have no idea where this fence is going.
And that-
So if you could actually just draw it right on there, show us, and then we could, right?
Right.
He's got a marker here, Chris.
I highlighted the plan that I submitted. I think I just said that, the one on top. The.
Chris, will the arborvitae stay right where they are?
They're probably gonna have to move because they're gonna conflict with where the fence is gonna be, but they're gonna be used somehow in that landscape package.
And,
As it is now, I think they are actually on the sidewalk line, so I think the fence would be inside of the arborvitae, because we
Right.
thought we would have a little bed in front of the fence, you know, running around with some landscaping in front of that.
and Chris, also it shows the fence will come to the front of the building. Is that correct, Chris?
I'm gonna show
The
you
house
right,
ready,
Greg,
He's
I'm gonna show
marking
you
it
right
out
now.
right now.
Comes from the driveway and then over, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, if you,
And this fence will go, the vinyl fence you can see from the front, we would have take that piece off.
the fence, as you come from Winchester Avenue, will come off the front porch, the edge of the front porch, go toward Winchester, go along the Winchester Avenue frontage, down the Fredericksburg frontage, and then turn back along the driveway. It's really consistent with the porch.
It wouldn't go across the driveway.
It's not gonna go across the driveway. The driveway's here.
There's the drive, there's a path.
But it's not gonna be, it's not gonna block the driveway.
So it's coming out from one corner of the house, going around and going back to the other corner of the
Exactly
house.
right, exactly. But you guys didn't. Yes,
One at a time, please.
that's my fault, you guys, I apologize for that.
So you're basically gonna enclose both fronts with a fence,
That's right, with the
not
three,
just one.
with the 3-foot landscape fence, that's right. Because, and don't forget, it's a corner property. So you're stuck with 2 front yard setbacks, which are your larger setbacks. So there's really no room in the other yard areas to even consider.
There's no
having-
other green space on the other side.
having a functional yard, so you're stuck with, your yard is really in the front. And remember, it's a 3-foot decorative landscape fence. It's not as high as this rail. Clem, we're gonna use, I understand that.
Can't
We're gonna
hear you,
use
Clem.
one of the models that has the wider spacing in the second row.
Do you know what that spacing is?
Inches? No, I don't.
It's gotta be less than 4. Well, are you stating that this is a specific design you're gonna use?
We will use the spacing as shown in row 1 or 2. Okay?
Yeah, one thing I want
Yes.
and I'd like to make it a condition.
Okay.
The top,
Okay.
what do they call it? Top rail? That whatever you do, you have a top rail on there so you do not expose the spikes on the top of those verticals.
I think
I've
that's-
already thought that
I
one
think
through.
that's probably a done deal.
I know,
I
that
have-
would just be a hook for,
Flat top like
I
that.
have a,
yeah, no, we wanted the flat with the, it's this style
This one,
here that we
okay.
were looking at, yeah, the
Clem,
CP one.
Clem, you had it correct. And that can be a condition, that's not a problem.
okay. Condition.
Thank you.
Right.
That's all we have.
Correct.
Mike, you want that survey?
She's not gonna put spikes there.
This should be on the record.
That's two variances.
Stan, would that be two variances?
Chris,
Yes,
are you done?
I'm done, Mike, thanks. Yes, I'm
Okay.
through, thank you.
Okay, anybody from the board have any questions or comments? No?
Can we see the limit of landscaping on that?
Excuse me?
It doesn't show the limit of landscaping on that plan. Does it?
I don't know what that means, I'm sorry.
Are you putting landscaping along Winchester Avenue too?
There will be landscaping along both frontages.
Outside the fence?
Outside the fence. The fence is going to be
You'll,
about...
you'll be in the site triangle.
The fence
You
will
will be
about-
in the site triangle.
Excuse me, Roger. Okay, the fence will be about 18 inches off the edge of the property line. If you're telling me that there should not be landscaping out at the corner, then that would have to be your call. I mean, I've run this by, the chief has had this now for a week. He hasn't responded to me. Presumably he has no problem with it. You can
Right, I mean-
You can condition it that the landscaping won't exceed the height of the fence at the site triangle.
When the house was built, where the arborvitae's are right now, I told them they cannot go past where they are in the photos. Because I had concerns about the site triangle. So I think that the open fence is questionable, but I think that's because Winchester is one way, but now you're gonna put a solid screen on there too. I think that creates an issue with pedestrian traffic.
And we don't have to landscape, we felt that would be better.
The landscaping looks nice, but I think at this location at the corner, I think it presents more of a hazard than a help.
Roger, we would be better off letting them landscape Fredericksburg. and
Fredericksburg up to the front of the
leaving
house,
From
and
the
then maybe,
house, and Winchester keep open.
Okay, okay, that's fine, okay. Fredericksburg up to the edge of the house. Fine. That's fine.
And then what, Tom, what'd you say about Winchester?
Winchester would get no landscaping.
No landscaping?
Right, so.
Right.
coming up
You want to keep the fence out?
Right.
Fredericksburg to the corner of the house,
Right,
like
Well, then-
Roger said, then the site triangle is gonna be completely.
right.
open.
Then we'd like to keep then the fence at the edge, not the 18 inches in. It won't look right 18 inches in. Can we keep it where it's shown, Ben, please?
at the property line?
Along the edge of the grass, on the property line. 18 inches in with no landscaping outside of it wouldn't look right. It's not gonna be dead on the edge. It'll be 6 inches in or so. But the 18 inches in was to accommodate landscaping. If you're saying you shouldn't have landscaping, then let's keep it on the perimeter.
It's gonna be on city property.
We will make sure it's not on city property. We'll keep it out of the city property,
Scale.
inside of our property, inside of the applicant's property line.
Hey, Chris,
Yes,
can I bring one up?
Yep.
When we're saying landscaping, are they allowed to put flowers there?
nope,
It's kind of what I had in mind, but.
So,
So the fence will be 4 feet off the sidewalk along Fredericksburg Avenue?
3 feet. Unless you're telling me the grass is a foot high.
Well, I'm scaling out 4 feet from the survey.
I'm sorry,
Fence
From
would
the,
be
from the
4
edge of
feet
the rear,
in,
inside edge of the sidewalk to the property line, it's scaling out to be about 4 feet. So you're saying that's where the fence will be,
if that's, yes.
okay,
If that's where the property line is, that's where it has to be.
okay.
and then on Winchester Avenue, how far from the edge of the sidewalk is the fence?
I'm scaling out about 3.5 feet.
3.5 feet?
What's that, Roger?
I'm scaling out
For what? Tom?
from the sidewalk to the
3 to
property.
3.5 feet.
Where?
Winchester.
I mean, I don't know if this board has jurisdiction to grant a variance to allow the fence to be within the city right away.
No.
You can just make a recommendation that they do it.
You would need an encroachment license,
We would need that if that was the case.
yes.
Would the board consider making a recommendation to allow the fence to move forward toward toward the edge of the sidewalk?
I wouldn't,
You would not.
no. I mean, there's, it looks like you're encompassing a lot of area with the fence
Look,
already.
it's gotta be on the property line, wherever the property line is, it is. Thank you. Understood. Understood.
Okay, anybody else from the board?
Yeah, I'd like to see if they were allowed to put flowers or something across there, because it's just gonna be a strip of grass for dogs. So if they wanna put some
I'd
kind of.
say anything
shrubbery-
less than 18 inches high would be acceptable.
That's what I was going with, something, half the distance, just that you can put something across there, so it's not a,
And Chris,
Bathroom.
just so your contractor's aware, I think there's some buried underground utilities in that front yard too, you just have to be careful about.
The landscaping, the 18-inch or less landscaping will be on both frontages or just on Winchester?
From the front of the house, wrapping around Winchester Avenue.
Okay.
As far as the line in front of the house.
Correct. Where the arborvitae's stop now.
Okay, anybody from the public like to speak? Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, public portion is closed. There's no conditions?
Yeah, 18-inch landscaping and on the property, on or inside the property line.
Yeah.
Is that fair, Roger, 18-inch landscaping?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry about that survey, I did that myself.
Okay,
We could tell.
the applications for C variance relief, essentially it's two variances to permit a fence in the front yards, which there's two front yards because it's a corner property. Proposal's a 3-foot fence with 0 feet setback on the property line. The conditions are the front of the house, it would be landscaped, no larger than 18 inches high on or inside the property lines from the front of the house wrapped around Winchester Avenue. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
And the fence will have spacing as indicated on the plans in row 1 or row 2 of the plans. That'll be a condition. And the other conditions that are set forth in Mr. McLaren's report, if any. So it'll be a motion in the affirmative for those variances and those conditions.
Are we putting, since it was very vague, we're trying to ascertain from the pictures here, are we putting a minimum for the spacing? Because Jimmy just pulled it up, it looks like it's only 1 5/8, which is almost gonna be a solid wall. Shouldn't we have a minimum?
Is that what it
to
said?
keep-
Is that what it said in row 1 or 2 of the plans, Jim?
Doesn't give a space.
It
Doesn't give it, so
Oh.
Jim pulled it up, and basically, it should be we should have a minimum that they can
What does the
close
board,
it down to.
before we vote then, what's
Roger,
the,
what would you say?
Well, they have highlighted on here, on the cut sheet, model number CP1.
which is what? in
It
space?
doesn't give the spacing, but it looks pretty significant spacing versus the
I think that's a Jimmy question, I don't think it can be over 4 inches. The space
Wait.
per child.
We were saying the minimum they can close it, because if it goes to 1 5/8, it's almost gonna be a solid fence.
Oh, I got you.
So
Oh,
we're
that's right.
saying that they can't go less than
4 inches.
No bigger than 4, no less than,
3?
4.
Why don't we just keep it at 4 inches? That's kind of like a standard.
There's two models. There's an 1 5/8 and there's 3 and 13/16.
3 and
So the 13/16 would be
Yeah.
the model you accept.
Right.
That's almost 4 inches.
So the space will be 3 and 13/16 as part of the
Between
conditions.
pickets, right.
Between pickets, right.
Does everybody understand that on the board?
And that's a condition, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris, you good? Okay.
All right, with those modifications, we need a motion for the variances and the conditions.
I'll make a motion.
Tom Collins?
Tough property you have there, but it's very nice. Being on that corner is really difficult. I think with the way we've amended and modified the application that there really is no negative impacts on the neighborhood. Positively, I think from a safety, especially with children in the area, your children, it is positive for the neighborhood. What you look at across the street to the next town isn't as great as what you'd like to look at, so your shrubs there are probably going to work out pretty good. So I see nothing wrong with this. I vote in favor.
Mike Cristaldi?
I don't see any negative in it at all. I think it's a positive to try to keep the four little guys contained. I vote yes.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I can find no reason not to grant this. It serves the owner's purpose. They're willing to meet all the conditions we requested. It is a busy street. It's a 3-foot fence, open style. I vote in favor.
Clem Wazleski?
Yeah, corner properties are a problem. Fences on them generally compound the problem. However, because of the traffic pattern on that particular corner and the specific needs of the family relative to the safety of their children, I think justify granting a variance for the fence. I vote in favor.
Jim Galantino?
Well, the traffic comes out of Ventnor and won't affect the sight lines coming back down Winchester unless they change the route of travel back into Ventnor, which it used to be years ago. Used to be two-way. And also, I think the house was originally owned by a psychiatrist and they tore it down, wasn't it? On the corner there? Anybody remember that way back?
Yep.
Come on.
Never
I don't. Anyhow, I don't see any problem with this application. I vote yes.
Craig Palmisano?
Yeah, I agree with all the other board members on this. It's a huge safety issue. Cars do go down fast, right past that S-curve in Ventnor and end up in Margate, traveling pretty fast. For the safety of your children, I approve this.
Mike Richmond?
Yeah, being that the fence is only 3 feet and it is an open picket, which is pretty unobtrusive, I don't think it's an issue. I'm going to vote yes.
Application passes 7-0. Chris, will you come sign, please? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, our next case is 101 South Brunswick Avenue, LLC. 101 South Brunswick Avenue, Block 2.02, Lot 2.01 in the S30 District to grant a C variance for front yard and side yard setbacks for a porch and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Blacker?
Yes, good evening, board members. May it please the board, Jack Becker from Fox Rothschild, representing the applicant, 101 South Brunswick Avenue, LLC. That home is owned by the Ginsbergs, they're right here in the audience, sitting to my right to their left. They've owned the home since 2007.
Hey, Jack, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I spoke out of turn. We're going to have Roger read his
Oh,
report
okay,
and
yeah.
then we'll let you open.
That's what I thought you were going to do, but you told me to go ahead.
No, that was my fault. I'll take the blame.
Go ahead, Roger. Sorry.
I take the blame for everything, so I'll take it.
That's right. My report is dated February 20th, 2017, and what Jack said. Background, the applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to extend an existing second-floor deck, porch in 2 directions, both requiring variances. The proposal is to extend the deck closer to South Brunswick Avenue and into the prevailing setback. The deck is proposed to be extended into the side yard setback as well. In addition, there is a vinyl fence located not only within the 2 front yards, but also within the public right-of-way. The fence needs a variance to be within the front yard and will need to be removed from the public right-of-way unless documentation is provided that permits this situation. Tax records indicated that the house was built in 2004 and was part of a subdivision. I've attached the zoning schedule for your use. The documents reviewed or listed. The variance is required. Front yard setback for the porch, whereas 11.13 feet is the calculated average and 5 feet is the minimum if no prevailing exists, and 8 feet is proposed. Side yard setbacks for the porch, whereas 8 feet is the required minimum and 5.90 feet is proposed. Fence located within a front yard, whereas no fences are permitted within a front yard and two exist without permits. No waivers have been requested. The application is deemed complete and the checklist has been provided. My comments are as follows. There is an existing first floor porch and second floor deck already in place. Then remember, the setback for porches is 5 feet and the calculated average is 11.13 as mentioned previously. The request for this variance may appear as de minimis as it is only 3 feet. However, if this variance is granted, it will negatively skew the average of the front porch setback for future development, meaning porches will be moving further towards the public sidewalk. The side yard variance may also have a negative impact as it's supposed to be within open space. No record of the fence being permitted has been submitted and should be considered illegal at this point in time. The fence is installed within the public right-of-way, which is not permitted as well. The rough calculations indicate that the landscaping requirements are being met. However, the landscaping requirements have been met. The recommendations are as follows. The variances being sought require testimony from the applicant to satisfy C1 and C2 criteria where appropriate. That concludes my report, and adequate testimony is needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the property is known and identified as Block 202, Lot 2.01, 101 South Brunswick Avenue, as required by the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law and by this board. On February 8th, 2017, we caused the notice of this hearing to be published February 8th, we caused the notice to be served on all 200-foot property owners, and on February 11th, we caused the notice of this hearing to be published in Lansing Press. We sent proof of that to your board secretary, Ms. Casey, and just asked her if it's in order so we have jurisdiction for the hearing. Thank you. So, just by way of introduction, this situation is a little unique, and Roger did say, the 3 feet is de minimis, but yet we're possibly creating a situation that would be negative in the future. I'd like the board to focus on because every application is unique. If you look at this block on South Brunswick Avenue, there are only 3 homes. And the home on the ocean has no porch. So we get no benefit there. So there's no setback. The house directly next to us has a deck, but it's on a large lot. It's actually a double lot. It's a very, very large home. And that is set back at the 11.43 feet. And of course, ours is set back. We have 3 decks. We're only asking to expand the second floor deck. The first and third floor deck are going to remain the same. Right now, and we'll have expert testimony, right now, that deck to the inside is only 7 feet wide, and essentially that is the Ginsbergs, really their open space. If you look at the house, it's a small lot, and that's their open space, and it's really hard for them to enjoy it. So the question really that the board is, what is the impact upon the neighbors? And the bottom line is, on the neighbors to the beach side, there really is no impact. It doesn't affect their light, air, and open space. So what we had Mr. Ponzio do, and he's going to testify to, is he looked a little bit beyond, and even though the ordinance doesn't allow it, he went across Atlantic Avenue over to Brunswick Avenue, and we did try to meet the prevailing setback there. Just for some metrics, in the neighborhood, I fortunately just moved to Margate, and on Claremont Avenue, South Claremont Avenue, you're allowed to go to 5, but you have to observe the average. Now, on South Claremont Avenue, it's 6.67. That's where my deck goes to. But this is 8 feet. So we didn't try to go all the way to 5. We thought if we added the 3 feet, at least we'd have 10 feet of space that would be usable. And you'll see the testimony, when you see the photographs, if you look at it, the deck really kind of almost lines up with the eave, so that there's really no negative impact as a result of doing this. Insofar as the fence, and Mr. Ponzio will testify about that, we did not build the house. Our clients moved in the house in 2007. When they moved into the house in 2007, they did receive, the fence was there, and they can verify that. They did receive a CO, and there is a survey that shows the fence. So I would concede that it doesn't meet the code today, but it's been there for 10 years. It's a 3-foot picket fence. And, you know, we would like to leave it there. I mean, it's an existing condition. I don't know that we need a variance for it. It's been there for over 10 years, and we did get a CO, and our applicant, our clients are entitled, I think, to rely on the CO, because if there was a violation, somebody should have called it out, and they would have dealt with it prior to the time they closed. So at this point, with that introduction, I'd like to have my expert, Mr. Ponzio, sworn in to testify.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And your name and business address?
Mr. Ponzio, you're a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, is that correct?
Correct.
Were these plans either prepared by you or under your direction?
They were.
And in connection with representing the Ginsburg, have you been to the site at least one or more occasions?
I have.
You also observed the surrounding neighborhood?
Yes.
And have you had occasion to review Margate City zoning ordinance and Mr. Warren's professional report?
Yes.
Okay, well then, based on that, would you tell us about the existing site conditions?
Jack gave a pretty nice introduction there and explained the crux of the application tonight. I'll orient you a little bit further. I have 3 exhibits to show you quickly. The first exhibit, A1, is essentially the variance plan. On this exhibit, to the right-hand side is the subject property depicted, as you can see it. The existing building exists in the gray shading. The other shaded area is the proposed expansion of the second floor deck that we're talking about. The total of that area is approximately 52 square feet. It's a pretty modest sized expansion. That is, it sticks out from the existing 1.58 feet on the ocean or southerly side, 3.13 feet, about 3 feet, just about 2 inches on the Brunswick Avenue side. The idea here is just to make the porch a little bit more functional, a little more usable, get a little bit of elbow room, just a bit. The 3 additional feet means a big difference on the deck. The fence that's on the deck now, the rail that is, takes up about 8 to 10 inches of the rail, so you can appreciate the dimensions that we're speaking about here. In total, the deck will be from the house working toward Brunswick, 11 feet total to the outside of the deck, take off to about a foot for the rail, and approximately the same dimension in the north-south mode that is along Brunswick Avenue. Again, only at the second level. The first level stays the same, the landscape stays the same, no changes whatsoever at the grade level. Jack in his opening mentioned the open space on the lot. Most of the lots this size are developed essentially when they're built in the max, if you will, without much elbow room. This is certainly similar to that. As you can see, the open space in the rear where you would like to enjoy the rear of your property for some outdoor recreation, that happens to be the driveway in this particular property. So the driveway, the vehicles would be parked in this location. Essentially, there's no functional rear yard that we can use. The front of the property, that is along Brunswick, functions as the open space, as the recreation. The deck area is very important, obviously, to the applicants, which is why they've gone through the effort to be here tonight. On the left-hand side of this is the average. Again, Jack mentioned a moment ago. These averages are kind of interesting. You know, we deal with them all the time on every application, as you do. In this particular case, the block, as Jack correctly mentioned, has a total of 3 homes on it. So regardless of the 200-foot distance, you're only permitted to calculate what's in your block. So in this block, working back from the ocean toward Atlantic Avenue, there are 3 homes. The first home on the ocean front has no porch, so it doesn't count toward this calculation whatsoever. The second home, which is built on a double lot with a very wide piece of property, has a large porch about 40 or 50 feet in length. I'll show you a photograph in a moment. And it's situated 11 feet and about 2 inches back from the property line. Well, our home and our existing porch, that is also 11 feet, 2 inches from the property line. our average is what we have. We get no benefit whatsoever measuring up and down the street. The minimum in this ordinance is 5 feet. So homes, if they were built originally at 5 feet, that would be the established prevailing setback. In this particular case, because of the porch situation, we can essentially only count the one house. We think the average is 11.13. Now let's look at what that means up and down the block. I have
And
4 photographs here. This
Could you
is
just explain what you're referring to?
A2. Some photographs that I personally took of the property. The first one on the upper left, you can see the view of the home from Brunswick, a very nicely appointed home, extremely well maintained, meticulously landscaped, I might add. It's a very beautiful home. It shows very well. The area that we're talking about is right there, I'm pointing my finger, right on the second level, that small area on the ocean side or southerly side of the house, where we would be proposing to expand that out a total of 3 feet, 3 feet for that length of the porch that you see. Looking at that down the block, this is from Atlantic Avenue facing the ocean. You can see, maybe not from that distance, however, but I'll report there's the house on the corner, subject property, the long home adjacent to us, the very large home, and then the one on the ocean front, you can see the chimney of the ocean front home sticking up where I testified that there's no porch. On the lower photograph here in the foreground, that is the large porch on the home that exists adjacent to us. Although it is the same setback, it is 5 times the length of the porch that we have. You can see that porch right there, almost 3/4 of the way across the front of that home. Very nice, by the way. Okay, this is an important photograph on the lower left. This is facing the home directly from Atlantic Avenue, looking straight down the property line, down the building lot line, that is, on the Brunswick Avenue side. And what you see there, and I'm sure it's difficult from that distance, but there is the eave line of the existing, the eave at the top of the first floor. Right behind that, you could just about make out the railing that exists there for the present porch. That eave sticks out from the house approximately 2 feet. The proposal to expand that porch 3 feet will mean it's going to be beyond or toward Brunswick 1 foot from the existing eave line. Why I'm testifying to that is relative to the view corridors. I can safely testify to the fact that there will be no impediment or no impact whatsoever to view corridors down the street toward the ocean front, which is something we talk about every time we have an application in the beach block. It's very important to everyone, and me as well. But in this particular case, we have the eave line already there. We're coming 1 foot to an open rail, and that would be the extent of, let's call it, the encroachment beyond the existing eave line. Nothing is changing at the grade level, so certainly no view obstruction or anything like that whatsoever. On the northerly side of Atlantic Avenue, Jack mentioned that briefly, we did measure those homes. They have an average of approximately 8 feet. When we measured back from Atlantic, working northbound, about 200 feet. And a couple of those homes had setbacks which were very tight. They were just about to the 5-foot minimum. But on average, there were a couple older homes that set back. The average of those homes was about 8, which is why when we first looked at this application and we thought about contemplating, do we go to the 5-foot minimum? Do we cut back a little bit further? We canvassed the neighborhood. We checked those setbacks. Notwithstanding the condition in the beach block, when you look at really what's important to the northerly side where any views could potentially be impacted, those homes are out to the setback that we're proposing. So I can safely say that without a doubt, there'll be no impediment to any view corridor or anything like that by virtue of this small addition of 52 square feet. One other variance that was mentioned briefly, on the southerly side of the home, on the ocean side, there is a side yard setback variance. I'll explain that to you quickly. I have one other exhibit to show you. You can see it here. The proposal is to expand the wall of the house, take it straight out, no further encroachment into the setback. The wall exists, just take that straight out so we can, quote, square off the proposed porch area. That would be 1.58 feet on the southerly side of the building. Here is an architectural plan, Mr. Zacker's plan. It shows the proposed condition. Let's look in plan view. At the first level, you can see the existing porch remains the same. At the second level, that is the line of the existing porch. It gets popped out to 3 feet, 3.13 feet to the 8-foot setback from Brunswick, just for that length of the porch right there. In looking at the profile of the building, let's see what we have here. Let's look at it straight on from Brunswick Avenue. You can see that is the porch that we're proposing right in that location. And here's a more important view on the side view, standing on the ocean side facing Atlantic Avenue. There is the bump out, if you will, of the porch, the railing, you can see it there. There is the eave above. There is an eave directly behind that porch, which shows right there in the other view. You can't see it from this view. It shows right there. So the fence, the railing that is going to essentially dovetail right into the side of the eve.
And that's just going to be cantilevered, so there's no posts or additional structures being added. Is that correct, Mr.
Yeah,
Ponzio?
you can see that right here, the cantilever of the 3 feet. The deck on certain will be rebuilt to support that with no additional support down to the grade.
Now, in your professional opinion as a planner, are there adequate reasons for the grant of this variance? And if so, what are those reasons?
I think there are, Jack. A couple things. On the positive side, you have these homes, a lot of these homes that are built, and the owners here, the applicants, purchased the home as it is, a magnificent home. We all need a little bit of space out back. Most of us would enjoy a small deck outside in the rear, barbecue or whatever the case may be, sitting outside, whatever. That doesn't exist on this property. Our focus is to the front of the property. We're bound by the constraints of the existing building, the way it is built. We're asking for this modest increase. I think on balance, it does stand the test and it does meet the standard.
Do the benefits from the grant of the variance outweigh any substantial detriment that would be occasioned from the grant of variance?
Yeah, we've studied this pretty carefully because in any case like this, it's always the negative side that's I think the most important. I mean, from the positive side, it's quite easy to say that this is an aesthetic improvement. It's something that's needed. We don't think it's going to detract whatsoever from the value and the beauty of the home. But on the negative side, we have to look at that carefully, which is I think we've done that in this study by canvassing this neighborhood, by measuring the setbacks up and down the street, by making certain that there's no impediment whatsoever to existing view corridors. We don't want to harm anyone's view here whatsoever. We're in that beach block. It's so important. By taking the southerly side and just maintaining the line of the wall that's there. We're not asking for, not 1 inch further than we already have. I think this is a modest request. I think it meets the standard. The negative criteria, in my opinion, is met.
And if this variance is granted, do you see any substantial detriment to either the zone plan or zoning ordinance or the public good of the city of Margate?
I don't, I say that because the minimum allowance in the ordinance, when the ordinance was made by the framers of the ordinance, they allowed a 5-foot setback. Homes could have been built at 5 feet, as you testified to a few moments ago about your particular block. And in many cases, in these blocks, there are homes out at 5 feet. This just doesn't happen to be one of those because of the configuration of the lots the way they are.
So is it a fair statement to say essentially what we're asking this board to do is look a little beyond, because there's only 3 homes and one of the homes on the block doesn't even have a porch, we're kind of asking this board to look beyond and across Atlantic Avenue, and we believe we can justify it by saying it kind of meets the average in the neighborhood.
Like
Would that
the
be
board,
a fair statement?
Yeah, we'd like the board to take that into consideration because of the extenuating circumstances of this particular property. And again, I think on the opposite side of that is that we see no negative impact from that whatsoever. And again, the views are not being affected, our neighbors not being affected, and I think it would, on balance, represent a good proposal.
And with respect to the fence, and I think, you know, we would concede that Mr. McFarland is correct, that today that fence is, would be illegal, and you need a variance. However, I just wanted to show you some documents that, and maybe mark those and present them. But there's a survey and a certificate of occupancy with photographs and so forth. Will you just identify those? We can present them.
There is a certificate of occupancy, July 9th, 2007, signed by the housing inspector at that time. For this subject property, 101 South Brunswick Avenue. There's a survey by Paul Colling, July 12th, 2007, same period of time. And it does identify the fence around the front of the property on Atlantic, as well as returning along the Brunswick Avenue side.
And are there also photographs attached to that CO?
Yeah.
With that package? And do they show, as of 2007, that the fence was existing?
These are photographs which are routinely taken for blood certificates, and they do happen to show the fence. You can see it there clearly.
And the fence is what? It's an open picket fence about 3 feet high.
It's quite attractive, Key West style fence, picket fence with a slope to it. It's pretty nice. And the flood cert was dated.
What's the date of those photographs, Mr. Ponzio?
Yeah, I'm looking for the exact date on it. Where's
What-
it got it here?
Any actual date or just?
Yeah, it's
2007?
7/12/07. Excuse
The
me.
photos.
And
That's the
if
date of the
board
photographs.
wants to- I mean, I'm certainly willing to, if the board would like to hear from the Ginsburgs. They certainly would verify, that's our representation, they would verify that when they bought it, they didn't add the fence, it was there when they bought it in 2007.
Yeah.
Jack, can you use this microphone, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
That's
Jack, I understand what you're trying to tell us, but if you think our building inspector, because he gives a CO on a resale, is gonna go check every variance, every condition of we couldn't do that.
Okay.
So to use that as a justification to me, on top of it, Clem and I have both been on this board a long time.
Yeah.
You got a third floor deck. That was we never gave a variance for that. That's illegal too. I don't know who this builder was originally, but you can see it right on there.
Well, there are third floor deck, you do have to get a variance for a third floor deck, no question. But
Yeah, but I don't think this was given a variance. I don't remember that ever coming before this board ever. It's
may have been
there.
part
I'm
of
not
the
saying we
subdivision.
get rid of the deck.
Yeah.
I don't know from Stan's viewpoint, but from my viewpoint,
Sure.
they're pre-existing.
Right.
You really can't do much about it, but maybe tonight we should clean up the paperwork and
You know, one of the issues that comes up
grant
with,
those variances
one of
just
the
so it
issues-
doesn't come back.
No, that'd be great.
one of the issues that comes up from a legal standpoint with when a board, as part of an application, sees some violation essentially. And there's always arguments that the municipality can be stopped from invoking that. But I think in this instance, I don't really see any tangible evidence, and I don't think the board's really charged with having to make a determination in that way.
I don't think it.
But I can say this, that if it doesn't meet with the code, this board has a duty to notify whom we have to notify to look into that, and where we can try to solve it tonight. And because if someone looks into it and the survey shows it's in the right of way, there's going to be needed some documents or some proofs to show that the municipality knew about that in 2007 when you're saying, and they're stopped from making any argument
Well,
concerning moving that, or you move it a couple inches.
Right. I don't think we're trying to say that the towns have stopped. I think what happened was, I was just trying to point it out to say that, look, they got the CO. It wasn't as if they put it in and it was there when they got
No,
it. And
I think-
they weren't on notice, and I think that maybe the board would give them some consideration, because that's all.
I mean, the
Just as
problem that happens is it's not the board's really jurisdiction to
Right.
grant something like that. So they could either recommend to the governing body to give a license for that.
Yep.
And then you're going to have to get a certificate of insurance that shows that it's on the municipal property. I mean, you know the drill, Jack.
Sure. No, I agree.
So
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that the municipality did anything wrong. I'm just trying to say that I think my clients were innocent. I don't believe that Margate did anything
yeah,
wrong.
no, I think that the board, I understood it to be that way.
Yeah.
I understood it to be that way, so does the board. I just think we have to clean it up tonight a little bit without, if there's, let's say, an approval on this, I don't want it to be deemed that the board is approving the fence where it is,
Right.
because that's not really under our,
Well, I don't think you can approve encroachment.
exactly, right?
It's in the municipal right of way. We'd have to get a license as we do it.
So
You know,
there's-
it's a minor encroachment, but we'd still have to get from the governing body a license if
Where there's to be a license or there's to be a slight movement of it to
where we'd have
conform.
to, just move it in.
Whatever you guys decide.
Even to conform, you still need a variance to be within the front yard if you move it back to the property line.
Right, you still need a variance.
Right. It doesn't look like it has to move too much.
No.
Dan, my point was that even with the license involved, that if they need the variance, that maybe we should take that, clean it up tonight, clean up the third
You mean the
floor
fence in
deck.
the front yard variance?
Yes. And get it, unless
I mean,
somebody has
I'm
a
sure the
problem
notice
and
had
wants
all
them
of
to
their
remove it.
variances, so it can be heard.
No, I
And-
mean, that would be great if you,
I'm
if
just
the
saying-
board.
So we have two front yards though, I think, so.
Correct. We have two front
Clean
yards.
it up and then going forward, and then if they need a license, that's up to them in the building department.
No, I think that's a good idea, Mr. Collins. So we'll amend it for, the front yard variances for the front yard fence, which isn't permitted, to permit it in the state that it's in. What's it, 3 feet, or it looks small? Whatever the
it's about
existing
3 feet,
condition
yes.
is.
Well, technically, it's not in the front yard now.
Right, it's not in the front yard.
Yeah.
It's on the street, in the right of way.
Well, with the assumption that it's going to be, it's technically not in the front yard, but I think the record will be clear here
Right.
if anyone challenges that
Correct.
it really is and there's an issue with it. And so
Right.
I would say, just to be safe, that we should deal with the front yard fences. So we'll amend it to include those two variances when we vote on,
Okay.
And what are the two variances?
to permit a fence in the front yard on the corner. Not permitted.
Right, but we can't permit a fence in the right of way.
No, we're not
No.
gonna do that. We're gonna
Right.
vote on the variance, assuming it's in the right of way, that they are granted the variance, and then the governing body has to make provisions
Condition
for a
on,
license and a certificate of insurance for the area
Right.
that's in the, right of way,
Right-of-way.
or they have to move the fence back.
Or we'd have
to
to
the
move it
yard.
back.
And that's
to
why
the
they want
property
the
line.
variances.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else from the board?
I have just one question on the proposed drawing, where it shows it's even with the building on the second floor deck from this proposed drawing.
Stacker plan? That was incorrect.
That's it.
I had him revise, I asked them to revise that plan. Hold on.
It just shows that it was
Yeah.
equal to the building.
If you look to the left side of that drawing, he shows it correctly. And then on the right side of the drawing, it was inadvertently in his drafting of it, it was incorrectly shown.
Yes, the right side is correct.
Yeah.
But the front was not correct.
Yes, this is correct. This is what I had him correct right there, that one view, where it sticks out.
It sticks out 2 or 3 feet there?
Exactly.
Well, 1 foot beyond it's 1 foot beyond the
It's a
eve.
3-foot expansion,
3-foot
and it's about 1 foot past the eave line.
1 foot past the structure.
Past the eave line.
That's-
3 feet past the structure, 1 foot past the eave line.
2 feet past the structure, 1 past the eave.
Right.
I have a question. Is the style of the house an upside-down house? Does that deck come off of what room? It's the living room and the kitchen.
One bedroom on the third floor.
You're not
Should we
sworn
swear them
in.
in, maybe? May want to swear them in.
I'll swear you in. You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And just your
Name
name
and
for the
address,
record.
Just for
Please.
the record, Mr. Gill, state your name.
Mark Ginsburg.
Thanks, Mr. Ginsburg.
So it's an upside.
Address?
At the 101 South Brunswick.
I need it on the record.
Sorry, no problem. Margate, New Jersey.
Thank
There's
you.
2 bedrooms and 2 there's 3 bedrooms and 2 baths downstairs. Upstairs is the living room, kitchen, open area, and the third floor is 1 bedroom
Okay,
and a bathroom.
thank you.
So the middle deck is the main deck.
Right.
There's one on the third floor that may be illegal, as is big enough for 1 chair.
Thank you.
I just put it in.
Okay, anybody else from the board? Anyone from the public like to speak? Okay, public portion's closed.
Any board discussion before I frame the motion? Okay,
We're gonna encompass the third floor deck also in this variance application?
I don't really want to go there, I don't think.
Okay.
I think that might have been part of the subdivision approval.
Yeah, I
mean,
don't know what
couldn't
the prior
find it.
approvals were.
I mean, to me, somebody approved that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be. Now, at this point in time, I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's been existing for 10 years now, right? I mean, okay,
You're not making that one bigger, are you? All right, all right.
yeah.
I would never.
All right, I appreciate it. All right, the applications for C variance relief for front yard setback for the porch, requirements 11.13 feet, proposals 8 feet, side yard setback, requirements 8 feet, the proposal's 5.9 feet. Also, as amended, another front yard variance for the fences. It's a corner property, and there's 2 front yards, so the fence that's running around the corner is not permitted because it's in the front yard. The applicant's requesting for us to allow it to be set there as is, in height and in structure, subject to some conditions, including, since the board now knows and the applicant informed us that the fence is actually inside the city right away, the condition's going to be that the applicant has to obtain a license from the city for that part of the fence in the right of way and comply with all requirements of the city, including insurance certificates, or obviously move the fence into the property lines. And all of the conditions set forth in Mr. McLaren's report. Anything else, Roger, that I didn't touch on as a condition that you wanted?
If the governing body does not grant the license, are you willing to move the fence back to the property line? Okay.
So the governing, whatever happens with that, they'll set forth what they have to do, and if not, they're gonna have to probably, unless they have some other legal argument, which we won't get into on this board. All right, so with that in mind, it's a motion, the affirmatives for those variances and those conditions.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Tom Collins,
A lot of confusion you brought with this house. Jack, just so you, in my opinion, I understood you exactly. I know it's not their fault, but you have inconsistencies, and I just figured you get them on the record and get them finished out. As far as the application goes, the property's maintained very well. It's a beautiful house, well landscaped. The fence is not obtrusive to the neighborhood. I see no problems. There's no negative factors with this. As far as the deck goes, I'm a deck guy. I mean, I understand where you're going with the space, and it is tight, and I see a lot of people putting 3-foot decks on things, and what are they gonna do with it? I don't think it's a big deal. It's a minor, very de minimis to the sight lines and the property, and you're not really blocking anybody, so I vote in favor.
Mike Cristaldi,
I see no negative at all. I think it's a good-looking home, and I think it'll improve it. I vote yes.
Margaret Gubernalty,
It is a unique situation. It's a block with only 3 beach block properties. There is no negative impact. I see, there's no impact to the view of the neighbors. It's a modest expansion, and again, we want you to enjoy outdoor space. So I vote in favor.
Clem Wozleski,
The application's gotten complicated, various elements to it. The only element I have a problem with is the expansion of the deck. I appreciate that the owners would like a larger deck, but I don't believe under the applicable regulations that there's sufficient reason to grant the requested variance. And I haven't heard any other testimony that does, so I have to vote no.
Jim Galantino,
As to the front yard setback for the porch and the side yard setback for the porch, the application shows minimal impact to the front and the side yard. Actually, it improves that one portion of the jut coming out. It doesn't look like the box above it, which is a 3rd floor deck, encompasses that deck. I agree with Mike on that one, so I'm going to vote yes.
Greg Palmisano,
It's somewhat minimus, 3-foot deck. Makes your living area a lot better, off the kitchen and living areas. It doesn't seem to affect any neighbors. They would be across Atlantic Avenue for a line of sight. And those houses, Mr. Ponzio uncovered, they're about 8 feet in their conditions, and I'm gonna vote for it. I'll vote for your application.
Mike Richmond.
I think the design of the deck, it's kind of shoehorned in there. I don't think it really impacts the neighbors or the neighborhood. So I'm going to vote yes.
Application passes 6-1. Jack, will you come sign, please?
Thank you very much.
All right, we're just going to take a quick 5-minute break and then hear our last case. Jim, that big machines here? They have vending machines? They have like vending machines?
Were you there today?
I didn't see one of you. I didn't see either one of you.
Oh, I was in there.
No.
Yes.
Okay. Where's the van?
Straight down the hallway.
Late, like 10:30, and then I was done at 12:30, and then I went back again.
Okay, our last case is Temple Sharad Hayam, 8501 Ventnor Avenue, Block 213.02, Lot 25 in the S60 District to grant C variance, lot size of a subdivision, driveway location, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied.
Let the record show that Rich Patterson's now in attendance, please.
Thank you, Board Chairman, Board members. My report is dated, well, revised February 22nd, but it was originally dated February 20th, 2017. Just want to point out that the lots are actually in two different flood zones. That's not an issue at this point in time. The proposal is the applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the City of Margate in order to how'd that stay in there again? The applicant is proposing to subdivide one lot into three individual lots, one of which will be non-compliant for area. The variances required are as follows. Lot area where 6,000 square feet is the minimum and 5,007 square feet is proposed for Lot A. Excuse me for a minute. The other variance is a driveway access which is not shown, whereas driveway access is required from a side street or a street that's parallel to Jerome Avenue, and the driveway access can only be provided from Ventnor Avenue for Lot B. No waivers have been requested. The comments are as follows. The engineer's report and any comments shall be included in any approval. The other comments reflect the engineer's report. I'm not going to be redundant on that, but that concludes my planning report for this application.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Jack Plecker from Fox Rothschild, appearing for the applicant, Temple Sharad Hayam, formerly known as Temple Emma Sholem. Just by way of background, what has happened here is, I think we all know that some religious institutions, churches, synagogues, and so forth are merging because, unfortunately, congregants are down. And there's a merger between what was Beth Judah and Temple Emma Sholem. So this property becomes available. One of the things that that the board should be aware of, although not relevant to zoning, because there were some discussions about the master plan about maybe looking at this for a commercial property. Well, it turns out that this particular property is deed restricted, and the only thing you're allowed to do is either a synagogue or residential. And that covers, we looked at the idea, could we get it released or something like that, but it actually covers over 100 homes. So it almost would be impossible, and it's been in effect since, I believe, the 1920s. So it's restricted to residential use. When we look at the surrounding neighborhood, what you'll find, and Mr. Ponzio is going to testify to it, is that the S60 zone is just right along the frontage, but behind that, on the same block, all the lots are very, very small. It becomes the S25 zone. The S60 is the typical zone in the Parkway area, but really, this is across the street from commercial property. It really isn't the Parkway zone, even though it is S60. The lots, if the variance is granted, the current lot is over 17,000 square feet, so you'll end up with large lots. As required by the municipal land use law, we did cause a notice this hearing to be published on February 11th, and we sent notice to all property owners on February 8th, 2017. We submitted proof to your board secretary. I do have in the audience Mr. Mark Needleman and Mr. Leo Schofer, who are, I guess, presidents and former presidents of the synagogues. And also, you can see in the audience, we have a number of supporters who happen to be congregates of the synagogue. I would like to call Mr. Ponzio. He was previously sworn, but if the you'd like to, we can swear him again.
I'll swear him in again for this application. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Ponzio, you're licensed land surveyor and planner in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes,
And you were engaged by this applicant, Sharad Hayam, to prepare the plans you're going to testify to tonight,
I
right?
was.
And have you been to the site on at least one or more occasions?
Yes,
Familiar with the area? Did you also have occasion to look at the lot sizes in the surrounding area?
I did.
Did you look at the zoning map as well?
Yes.
And have you had occasion to review Mr. McLaren's planner's report as well as the Remington and Vernick report?
I have.
Okay, then based on that, would you describe the existing conditions and the proposal for the property?
Okay, thank you. Okay, this exhibit A1 that's marked is an exhibit of the existing conditions on the property. You can see it's located between Kenyon and Lancaster Avenue on the north side of Ventnor Avenue. The temple is shown in shaded area. It occupies a considerable part of the property. In calculation, it's 60% of building coverage on that property, the way the building is situated today. You can see the setbacks are relatively tight in the rear, rather long setback, approximately 4 feet to the backdrop of the single-family homes behind the property. To the right side, that is Kenyon Avenue, a 7.6-foot setback, and a 17-foot setback out to Lancaster Avenue. The interesting thing on the property itself, you drive down the street, we all go by this property so many times, you don't realize that the property line is on an angle. Take a look at it, you can see it clearly here on the exhibit, how the configuration of the lot is, such that it's an irregular piece of property. You really wouldn't know it driving by, walking by this. It's that subtle, although it shows like it does on the drawing. I'll tell you what that calculates out to. For every running foot, of frontage, the line moves back 1 inch. Very interesting the way that calculates out. So it makes up the difference between the 103.89 frontage along Kenyon and the 90.08 frontage along Lancaster for the full length of the lot, that is 175.4 feet. If you would take this lot and do away with the irregularity of it, that is square the lot off, which by the naked eye you would think that's what this lot represents. You would have a lot that's over 18,000 square feet, that is 18,222 square feet. So bound by what we have here, that is the configuration of the property, it does create somewhat of a hardship condition on the applicant dealing with that in attempting to subdivide.
Well, if you squared it off the other way, you'd have less feet.
You take land away.
No question.
Good way to look at it. I'm a half-full guy. On the lower left of the exhibit, you can see the setbacks, which are all calculated, and I'll testify to that in a moment. They're all calculated up and down the street. Exhibit 2 photographs, somewhat of a landmark property. Everybody's looked at this property for so many years. Taken from the 2 intersections facing diagonally right toward the property, just so that you can see the configuration of the existing building. That is A2. A3, let me find that for a moment here. Okay. A3 is the topic of conversation, basically. This is the proposed subdivision plan. I'll describe the characteristics of it quickly. One lot, that is Lot A, for that lot, we are asking for a variance. We're asking for one variance in lot area. The area is proposed as 5,007.42 square feet, where 6,000 is required. Lot B in the center has an area of 6,001 square feet. Lot C has an area of 6,002 square feet. The lot frontage requirement in the ordinance is 50 feet. Lot A has 54.4 feet. The lot in the center has 62 feet. The lot on the right-hand side, C, is 59 feet. They're all well in excess of the frontage requirement. So in the event that this subdivision were approved, and in the event that 3 homes were built on this, the cadence of the homes down the block, that is the 50-foot separation, would be met and actually exceeded in this particular case. Again, the extenuating circumstance is the angle of the property, which creates the variance situation that we are seeking. The second variance, I believe the only other variance we're asking for, would be a driveway access for the center lot. We're proposing to have the driveway access out to Ventnor Avenue. In your ordinance, it specifies that for corner properties, whenever as they exist, the driveway for those properties, whenever possible, should face out to the side streets. So we're proposing that with the 2 side lots, that is lots A and C. Lot B in the center, we're asking for that relief to allow the driveway out to the street frontage. I'll go through some other things for you quickly here. The lot itself, how did it come to be? There's a couple quick things I just want to show you here. This is an exhibit from an old atlas that I presented to the board many times before. On the left side, this is a depiction from 1914. You can see Jerome Avenue, which existed, well, back then, over 100 years ago, at 50 foot wide. It was a 300-foot parcel of ground. Kenyon Avenue was in true alignment. Lancaster Avenue terminated at Atlantic Avenue and did not go through to the backside. Mansfield Avenue was straight. What happened by the time you get to 1938, which is on the right-hand side, Kenyon Avenue has been shifted. It's been relocated to where it exists today. Jerome Boulevard has been widened to 100 feet. The configuration of all the land, as you can see, is so different in that relatively short period of time. And the subject property was divided at that time into 4 lots with frontages of approximately 40 feet right across the street frontage. As you can see, this is 1938, this is 1914. Essentially, this layout exists all the way to the present time, with the exception of the fact that this lot, the subject lot, has been consolidated into one because of the use that exists, one use on that lot. The Blessed Sacrament lot, as you can see, all the small lots that comprise that at one given time, they've all been consolidated in that one parcel of ground. A4, let's go back to A5. A5 is an illustration of the, this is sinking down on me here a little bit. Back a minute. It's an illustration of, on the left side of the map is the tax map. You see a subject property in the outline along Ventnor Avenue, and on the right-hand side is a copy of this portion of the Margate City zoning map. They're very important. First, let's go to the zoning. The property is zoned S60, as Mr. McLaren pointed out in his opening. You can see, also mentioned by Mr. Placker, the S60 essentially describes the parkway lots. Now, this is interesting. When I looked at the zoning map, when it was framed, the S60 extended over beyond, including our lot, in this residential zone, and also included the Blessed Sacrament property, as you see it there on the drawing. The parkway technically ends right here at Lancaster Avenue. However, the zoning, the S60 zone, at the time the zoning map was prepared, they chose to extend the S60 zone over to include these other lots. Why that was done, I couldn't say exactly. I could have an opinion of it. My opinion is the subject lot was one large parcel of ground. It's used for the religious use as it is, as well as the Blessed Sacrament. It probably made sense, and maybe I would have done it the same way, to incorporate those into the larger size zone at that time. I don't believe that there was any intent or any forethought that these uses could potentially go away one day, and those lots would be re-subdivided and perhaps put back to residential use. I couldn't say that was factually done, but in my opinion, I don't think that was ever considered. The board, about a year ago, there's no precedent in zoning, I understand that completely, I just want to put it out there. About a year ago, the board entertained an application for a part of the S60 lot, that is a part of the Blessed Sacrament property, where they actually rezoned part of their property, took it out of the S60 and put it in the S30, and created building lots along Jerome Avenue. Those lots are vacant at this time. I think you all know what I'm talking about there. We did that about approximately 1 year ago. And I think maybe the intent was the same with that application as what we're looking at here. Is it true, is it valid to say that these lots should remain as an S60 lot when really they're an appendage or an extension of the parkway, not really on the parkway? And more importantly, as Mr. Placker mentioned in his report, and I thought this was also extremely interesting, when you look at your zoning map throughout the city, you usually don't have an S60 that bumps up against an S25. The S60 is a zone that requires large lots, 6,000 square foot lots. They're very large for the city of Margate. The S25 allows 2,500 square foot lots, very small lots. Typically, you'll find that there's where it's more like an average. You'll go from the S60 to perhaps the 40 or something like that. In this particular case, we've got the S60 lots butting directly up to the S25. And look how the S25 wraps in here. It's all this area wrapping around the back. Here, parkway lots, backdrop, S40, which is more typical that you would see throughout the city of Margate. This is somewhat of an anomaly in this particular location. Now, these lots, let's look at the other side. And when the framers made the ordinance to extend this over, these two lots directly behind us were also put into the S60 zone. You can see them right here, lots 12 and 24. The area of those lots is 5,180 square feet. So when the zone was changed to incorporate those lots and our lot into the S60, essentially they created nonconformities for those two lots. The 5,000 square feet plus or minus is about the size of the smallest of the three lots that we're proposing. So we're very consistent and compatible with our immediate adjoiner. If you look at the remainder of the block, all of the lots with the exception of two, and those two lots are lots 18 and 20, are 5,200 square feet, again, pretty commensurate with the one small lot that we have. And the remainder of every other lot along Kenyon Avenue, Lancaster Avenue, there's a lot line missing there, it's two lots, are 40 feet by 87 feet, or an area of, I have here somewhere, 3,500 square feet. So here we have lots in our block that vary from 6,000 square feet on the front that we're proposing to approximately 5,000 square feet for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots, with the remainder of the lots 3,500 square feet. I think that's very telling when you look at something like that. Okay, let's go to another exhibit. What number is that one? A5. Okay. So what I did, we took an aerial photograph of the block. How do the proposed lots fit into the block? Well, there they are. There's the small lot, the 5,000 square foot lot, and there are the two 6,000 square foot lots. Adjoining us to the northerly side, these two lots are 5,000 square feet, essentially, give or take, essentially commensurate with the size of that lot. The remainder, with the exception of the two lots on all the way up the side of Kenyon Avenue, everything else is 3,500 square feet. So there's your neighborhood. Our proposal, 6,000, 6,000, 5,000, 5,000, and essentially just about the rest of 3,500. I think it's a good blend on the block, and my opinion is that this is a very good fit on the block. What I did was go a little bit further, and I prepared another exhibit, A7. What if we left the block and divided it in half, our lot that is, and prepared two lots? So we could prepare two lot subdivision. By right, we wouldn't be here tonight doing this. It's a by right case. It could easily be done. Is it the right planning alternative to do this? In my opinion, the application tonight represents an opportunity for improved planning. Improved planning because it's, the proposal that we're presenting is much more consistent with the neighborhood, much more compatible to the neighborhood. Let's look at this in a little more detail. Proposed lot A and B, I just drew a line right down the center. The lot on the left side is a little bit smaller. We would have a lot of 8,200 square feet on the left and 8,800 square feet on the right. They're extremely large parcels of ground. Let's look at what that would look like and put it into the same photograph. There we would have those two lots on that block, in my opinion, that's completely out of character. Although it's compliant, I believe the alternative here of the three-lot plan, because of the configuration of the lot, the angle that I spoke to a moment ago, the development that exists throughout the lot, I think the alternative of a three-lot plan is an opportunity for this board to consider, and I think it's a much better planning alternative.
Mr. Pongio,
large lots.
Can I interrupt for one
Yes,
second?
Yes, sir.
The picture you're showing is down Lancaster Avenue.
Yes.
And if that picture didn't show Lancaster and showed down Ventnor Avenue, it kind of destroys the argument. I mean, you're comparing something back off Ventnor Avenue with the frontage of Ventnor Avenue continuing onto the Parkway. So
Okay,
you're not presenting it, you're presenting
Well, no,
a
I'm presenting what's on our
skewed
block.
approach.
I'm just looking at our block. I understand that. Well, let me testify to that. I did look at that. All along the Parkway, let me go back to that. Find out another exhibit. I can give you some information on that, Mr. Chairman. Which way would you like? What would you like me to do there? Tell me exactly. Here's a picture of the entire Parkway section. Takes you all the way down to Sumner Avenue. We're not technically on the Parkway, is what I'm saying.
Comparison along Ventnor Avenue than comparing it going back towards the Bell on Lancaster Avenue. That's
Well,
what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The reason I did that is we are technically not a Parkway lot. The Parkway lots are completely different. I testified to that. That frontage, if you can see the zoning, is for those Parkway lots. Those lots are all, I believe, 90 feet by 80 feet or something to that effect. They're on a little bit of an odd angle, all the lots are, and you can see them, and that's the way the S60 lot was framed around them. My testimony, Mr. Chairman, is that we are not a Parkway lot, but we're being considered a Parkway lot, and in my opinion, it shouldn't be considered a Parkway lot because our neighborhood is completely different. If you look at, I gave you the testimony here on the north side, but let's look right across the street. Very small lots directly across the street from our property, not the Parkway size lot. Let's keep going in the opposite direction. If we're going to look west, let's look east. You can see it. They're very small lots all on every block to the east. So I thought that, in all fairness, the right way to look at that, because we're not being considered as a Parkway lot, would be to look at our immediate neighborhood, our immediate surroundings, which any variance that's approved by the board, the most important thing is any impact that would have detrimentally to the immediate neighbors. Our small lot is commensurate with the size of the lots that immediately adjoin us. So that's, I looked at that matter, and I do appreciate the way you're looking at that as well, and I understand that completely. Okay. So,
Martin, so what is the average size of a lot that runs down Ventnor Avenue on the Parkway? Did you just
Mike,
gave it-
can you use the speaker, please?
Yeah, what is the average size of a lot that runs down Ventnor Avenue on the Parkway?
in the Parkway?
Yeah.
I believe those lots are about,
7,200?
He just said
yeah, I
8 by
think
9.
they're about 80
Right.
by 90, something
Okay.
like that, roughly speaking.
All right, so about 7,200.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
And as you can see, this is clear. I mean, they are the largest lots in the entire area, rightly so. Rightly so. Okay. So, let's see here. Again, go back to the proposed plan. I believe that when you look at the immediate surroundings, you consider, of course, the Parkway lots. When you look at all this in total, I think this is an opportunity for improved zoning. I think that the 3 lots are a much better fit. We have to look at the immediate surrounds of our property. We match the size of the lots touching our property. The lots across the street are very small in size, 30 and 40-foot frontages, not really even anything commensurate to what we are proposing. I think it's a good fit for the lot. You saw the photograph. I believe it. We're compatible, that is, and consistent with the size of the homes immediately adjoining us, which I think is the most important. I think we should look at this, in my opinion, separate from the Parkway. We're not the Parkway. We don't have the island. We don't have the separate road in front of us. We don't have that separate access. That's a completely different idea entirely.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, the Parkway ends at Lancaster Avenue. And I think that we should look at these lots again in context with what they are. That is this one large lot. The use that's there, the building that's there is going to be demolished. It's going to remove all of those nonconformities. Think if you're living behind this, you have a wall 4 feet from the property line, about 150 feet long. That wall is going to be gone. The rear yard setback at a minimum will be 12 feet and 19 feet for the center lot. It's a major improvement for the homes directly behind this property if this plan is proposed as it is approved as it is.
So, there's also the testimony that the homes that would be built on the lots would comply with all the bulk requirements in the ordinance?
There would not be one variance for any of the homes that
They'd
would
meet
be built.
height, they'd meet all the setbacks and so forth.
Correct.
Also, was another thing in your thinking when you designed this plan that this would provide a very good transition between the lots on the Parkway and, the higher density church and the commercial uses across Ventnor Avenue?
I think it is that, and I think it's clear in the exhibits, especially going back to the city's exhibit, that is the zoning map, the lot sizes, the larger sizes, they're beautifully pointed all along the Parkway, transitioning into the smaller lots as you get into this lot off the Parkway.
Now, if this variance is granted, does it further any purpose of the Margate City zoning ordinance? And if so, I know you stated a lot of purpose, but just summarize your testimony.
I think it does. I think it does because, again, I look at the anomaly of the block, the way the zone map was prepared, and why, in my opinion, the zone was extended to these 2 lots as Blessed Sacrament, as well as the subject lot. I also look at the S60 zone along Jerome Avenue, where there was a recent subdivision to change that. I know the board favorably considered that because of perhaps some of the same reasons. And I think because of that, I think the subdivision is well warranted.
And do the benefits of the granted variances outweigh any substantial detriment that would be occasioned by the granted variances?
I think the development of 3 homes on the property is more consistent and compliant with the neighborhood pattern. I think it's a better plan. I think it's an opportunity for better planning. I think the 2 lots of over 8,000 square feet, first of all, in comparing those to the preponderance of the lots even on the Parkway, is larger than those lots, and we're not on the Parkway. To me, it's out of character.
Any substantial detriment to Public good or zone plan or zoning ordinance of the city of Margate, if it's
I
granted.
think the demolition of the building, the improvement of the setbacks, the new air, light, and open space that's going to be implemented on this property, because we're going to meet all the ordinance requirements. I find this a better plan in all aspects.
Thank you. No further questions.
I have a question, if I may.
He's the chairman tonight.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I thought you came in.
Go ahead.
I have a question for Mr. Ponzio.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ponzio, would it not be better to, so we don't have a problem with Ventnor Avenue with parking for that one property, would it not be better to do 2 lots coming in off either Kenyon or off of a Lancaster? So making like a 46-foot, 2 46-foot lots or somewhere, and then the depth, and then have one large lot on the other side, on the corner. That still gives you 3 lots, but it takes away that Ventnor Avenue access issue.
That's a good point. I appreciate that. We looked at multiple ideas for this subdivision. We reviewed that with our client. We looked at averaging the 3 lots in frontage. We looked at averaging the 3 lots in area. So the lines changed slightly because of the irregular configuration. We considered turning the lot sideways, as you suggested. You could do that on the Kenyon side. We have 103 feet. When you get to the depth, it narrows here, which would essentially put it in what's called a variance situation because of the configuration. So we looked at all of those things and thought that this configuration would be a better idea, asking for the variance for just 1 lot, where the other 2 lots are fully compliant as far as area is concerned. However, I mean, that's something, the applicants are here, we hear very loudly what you're saying, clearly, and something that we could talk about.
Just one more comment too. I'm a realtor, and we do have those 3 lots on Jerome Avenue for sale. We cannot get a builder to take them based on the price right now, on the square footage on those lots. We're having a hard time. What happens to those larger lots there, you're going to they're going to want $400,000 a piece for them, and then you're going to have to build on top of them, which is going to take those properties over $1 million. They're not on the parkway, so it's really going to be a very hard sell. Where this way, coming off the side, you can now sell those houses for $895, $795, $895, somewhere in there, and they'll be more saleable because it'll be a little different in terms of size, except for the one on the one side, you probably get a little more for it. I mean, that's basically, and it alleviates the problems of Ventnor Avenue, since we can't do the commercial there anymore. So.
Yeah.
113 North Lancaster went for $1.075 million.
Which one?
113 North Lancaster, White House.
The house directly next to it went for $965.
Yeah, without the pool and the 3rd floor. Huh?
My concern-
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I just wanted to, in the same vein with the parking on Ventnor Avenue, you do have a detriment here to your neighbors because you have, you were right, the intent of the master plan was to make that commercial property. All the commercial properties across the street wanted it. The more commercial you have together, the better. I don't think anybody on the board of the city wants to fight that you have a deed restriction. Nobody knew that at the time, and that's absolutely fine. Nobody wants to fight the deed restriction. But with the parking on Ventnor Avenue, you're now taking parking, there is no parking in Margate, and that synagogue was not used every day. It was parking for the places across the street. So you're now eliminating parking spaces for the commercial places across the street. So there is a negative impact to those neighbors.
Well, that would be just one spot, correct?
Yeah.
Does anybody from the board have any questions, comments?
I as well have a concern about the curb cut on Ventnor Avenue. It's busy in the summer. It will be close to impossible to get out of there if you're backing out. We are losing parking for our commercial people, as Rich Patterson said, but I don't know that anyone's here to complain about that. My big concern is if you were to just leave 2 lots there, okay? If you were to just put 2 lots there, so you got 6,000 square foot on each lot, correct?
8,000.
8,000.
So you're building a house of what size on 2 lots? If it remains 2 lots, what size house are you building? You're the builders. So you got a 2 6,000 square feet homes, right? There's a ceiling on the market value of those homes because they sit across commercial properties. So therefore, a developer, whoever's going to develop those pieces, and let's put it where it's at, someone's going to develop those pieces. And if there are two houses there, they're, in my opinion, they're going to build substandard houses because there's only a certain value. They're not going to be parkway houses. They're not going to be all brick. They're going to be less than that. So that's my concern. I mean, I don't have a problem with 3 houses. I have a problem with a curb cut on Ventnor Avenue. So if there was any way to change that, but the market value is the market value on 2 big gigantic houses, and I think that we won't get great houses built there. They won't be parkway looking houses. My opinion.
I agree with Pinky. I think she's got it right on the money on that. I have a question though for Mr. Ponzio. Just to bring me into perspective, you're saying this is not part of the parkway. In my mind, I envision the parkway because you have the street in between and the park in the front. Is that stop on Lancaster or Mansfield?
Yeah, stop short of us.
So it's way back on Mansfield, so...
I think it shows here, Mr. Collins. I believe it does. Oh no, I thought it showed on that view. It doesn't. Let's see if I have a picture of that.
Well, you...
The end of the island is there at Mansfield.
Mansfield. So then that street and the island doesn't come down another whole block to where you're at. Number 2, I agree with Pinky. Also on the curb cut, I saw the way you designed the houses. If you had a 3-lot subdivision, you have a lot of depth there. I mean, you could create an easement from either Lancaster to Kenyon and have no curb cuts except one in the back of each. Let everybody access from the rear. Or on the larger Kenyon Avenue side, you could extend it over to the center property with an easement where nobody could park in it, but you would drive through and save street parking. I think if you're gonna, and you're not really squeezing 3 houses in because you're gonna get 3 nice big lots with 3 nice houses, but I think the market, I think you were right on the money with the market. I think you need to address the parking as far as I'm concerned. That's what I thought Pinky said too.
I disagree with Pinky and Tom that it's not part of the parkway. I think you come down Jerome Avenue and you turn towards Longport, and that's, as Commissioner Blumberg always likes to say, that's the crown jewel of Margate when you turn there. You can't say that the same thing turning the other way on Jerome Avenue with little bungalows and going to the shopping areas and whatever. But the jewel of Margate, in his mind at least, is the ball field for one thing, and then you turn down Jerome Avenue and have that parkway section. And to say this isn't part of that, I find that as a stretch. It might not be technically what they labeled the parkway in the 30s. You know, you say there'll be 2 big ugly houses there or big cheap houses there, but if they build 3 houses there, you know what the houses are like now. There's going to be 3 great big houses there. It is going to look jammed in. There's nowhere from Jerome Avenue to Washington Avenue. Well, I'm sorry, there is one place. There's nothing with 3 houses on a block except where the old Wawa was, and that was a disaster. If you know what that party is where they put 3 houses there. It never should have been done, and it was done, and I would hate to see that happen here. They're not going to build small, modest houses if they have 3 lots. They're going to build as big as they can, just like everything else has. And the other thing is, I've been trained from every class or whatever I've been to, the monetary considerations are not of the board's purview, that we don't consider. Now, I'm assuming these are spec houses. It's not someone building for himself, but it's not up to us to say, well, you can get more money if you do this or less money. That has to be out of our consideration, so.
I kind of agree with Mr. Patterson on that. And you know, I guess like I've been on the board a long time, and I've never seen a variance for almost 1,000 square feet. That's a pretty good, that's a, you know, I mean, we fight variances for 10 square feet or 20 square feet. 1,000 square feet, to me, is a pretty big variance.
Oh, and I'm sorry, one other thing, and I just wanted to, Mr. Ponzio's opinion was that's not why they extended the 60 feet. Maybe it was their intent that that was to be continued like a parkway type area. One other thing, which I feel may be, in my mind, apples and oranges. I don't consider those lots on Jerome Avenue that with all those 25 or 35-foot lots, whatever they are around there, the same as Ventnor Avenue. I don't think it's the same thing. If I thought it was the same thing, I would have no objections to it. But where they're back on Jerome Avenue, I don't look at it as the same thing here, where it's our beautiful Ventnor Avenue.
I mean, the lot right across the street on Lancaster Avenue and Ventnor is 7,400 square feet. So there's a lot next door to that, going down the block. Anybody else from the board have any questions or comments? Anybody from the public like to speak?
Raise your right hand. Sure. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes, I do.
And just your name and address for the record? You have to speak in the microphone.
My name is Leo Schofer. I reside at 7405 Bayshore Drive, Margate City, New Jersey. As Jack indicated, I am a past president of Congregation Beth Judah, which is one of the two synagogues that has merged into what we now call Shirat Hayam, or Song of the Seas. First of all, I want to say, it's regretful that this building has to come down. As a resident of Margate for over 50 years, it's a shame that, our congregation is getting older and our community is changing, and that it can no longer support this synagogue in and of itself, and that we need to merge two congregations into one. But we're fortunate to have been able to do that, and for the most part, the vast majority of the congregants of both merging synagogues are from the city of Margate. So when we did merge, we had to make a decision as to which building we would retain and which building we would not retain, and it became quickly obvious that with a larger merged congregation that we were going to need more parking, and that the former Beth Judah building, which has parking in this synagogue location, does not have parking, that would be the suitable one, and that this would be the one that would have to be sold. And when we looked in it and we found this deed restriction, which not only says in it residential only, it specifically says no commercial shall be permitted. It says no commercial. So although we did have some interest, we couldn't proceed. When Temple Emet Sholem was built, there was a release with over 100 signatures on it at that time in 1953 that allowed only for the construction of a synagogue. So although, as Mr. Patterson has rightly stated, financial considerations may not be within your purview, the fostering of this community and the fostering of institutions within this community, and looking out for the health and welfare and the future of institutions within this community is within your purview. And you can consider the fact that these two synagogues need to merge in order to survive in our changing community, and we need to dispose of one so that the other one can continue to survive and to service the Margate community. And that you may consider, according to my understanding. I'd also like to point out, in terms of the parking and in terms of the excellent point about the direct access to Ventnor, you have here an institution, 20,000 square foot building it was a synagogue, it had a Hebrew school, it had a day school, it had a Sunday school, it rented out space to who did we rent out space to Head Start. So it got a tremendous amount of use. It had no on-site parking at all. Tremendous amount of use. When it is demolished, all of those parking spaces that it needed for all of those uses will now be freed up. So the community will benefit tremendously. The commercial community across the street will now have far more parking than it did before, when people were coming for the high holidays and you had hundreds of people coming using the synagogue, when you had people coming and using the Hebrew school, when you had Head Start there. So although we consider this, and personally I consider this, as a local person, I'm very sad whenever we tear down an institution like this. This is going to be a benefit in terms of parking, in terms of traffic, because you're going to replace this multi-use facility with 3 houses that'll have off-site parking on them, and you're going to free up all of this parking in the area, and you're going to reduce all of this, congestion during the holidays and during Saturdays. So you really should be considering that as well. So I think that, yes, there may be it may not be a perfect plan because of the access from Ventnor Avenue, but when we've looked at it and we've showed it to potential builders, this is the plan that was told to us that was the most attractive plan to the potential builders. We're not going to build these houses, as you know. We're going to sell this, and we're going to use this money to improve the roof and the air conditioning system and other things at our existing building. So this is what we were told is the best plan, and this is why we're bringing this plan to you. I'm sorry if I'm a little long-winded, but those of us who are volunteers and have given many years of our lives supporting and helping to maintain these 2 institutions, it's our goal to continue to maintain this now merged institution, and the ultimate sale of this building is very important, to our dream for continuing our congregation.
Leo, can I ask you, where was the parking before? Where did everybody park before? There was no, was it?
Stand up.
On the street,
On the
correct?
street.
On the street.
Right. And now there'll be off-street parking, and none of those uses will exist.
This is a monetary thing for the 3 lots rather than 2?
When you say a monetary thing?
To get more money for the 3 lots than for 2 lots?
When you say it's a monetary thing, I think, from my opinion, subdividing into 3 lots will produce more income for the congregation than 2 lots. But I don't think that's the sole reason. I think that, Jack's the attorney, not me, but I think that, as Art said, there's also a planning consideration here as well, and that he believes that the 3 lots work better as far as the community is concerned. And if I lived right behind it, I would be much happier with the 3 houses than with, this institution there. Thank you for giving me that much time. I appreciate it. And we have, many congregants here from both of the merged congregations, if you want to hear from anybody else, but I tried to kind of sum it up for everybody.
Anybody else like to speak?
Ma'am, can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, and your name for the record?
Linda Gockler at 120 North Lancaster Avenue, Margate, New Jersey.
Thank you, Ms. Gockler.
You're welcome. And as Mr. Peter Patterson stated, he's one of our neighbors. Lancaster Avenue is definitely not on the Parkway. When we were looking at houses, my husband and I, my aunt and uncle built the home on Lancaster Avenue where we live now. But when we were looking at houses to purchase a home, we were told that Lancaster Avenue was not a Parkway residence. So therefore, it was a better buy on Lancaster Avenue. Unfortunately, there were no homes available on Lancaster Avenue. We did put a bid into one, but they took it off the market. So going back to Mr. Patterson saying that it's the Parkway, it's not the Parkway. Also, for the look on Ventnor Avenue, as Commissioner Blumberg says, if you go to the right, you do see the Parkway, but you don't see the Parkway right away. you see 2 religious buildings, and they take up 2 full blocks. Then you get into the Parkway, but not until you get to Nassau Avenue, or no, Mansfield Avenue. And then you see the Parkway. It's a great look, and I love it. I love being in Margate. It's fantastic. And I thank you all for keeping Margate looking as great as it does. But if you went to the left, the family or the city fathers way back then did not do as good a job, because that's just an everyday residence on Ventnor Avenue. So I'd like you to consider that when you think about subdividing this into 3 lots. I think it would look good for the area. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, public portion's closed. Anybody else from the board have anything to say?
Wanted to get a clarification if you were willing to get rid of that variance for the center property with the driveway.
My mind works slow, sorry about that.
It's
I'm
okay.
still under
For the
a...
record, this is Ms. Gockler again.
Yes, thank you. The synagogue, temple, Emma Shalom, received a grant, I don't know what you call it, I'm not sure, but the lot in the center, right in the center of the building that exists now, was given approval to have that as a handicap space. So the commercial properties did not have that handicap space available for their shoppers to shop at the commercial property. So therefore, if you did put the variance in to allow that driveway, it would be the same thing that it has been for the last 5 years, I believe it has been.
Very good point.
Thank you.
Just briefly, just by a show of hands, I know you're not coming up, but just by a show of hands, I guess people in the audience are Margate residents and they are in favor of the application. Is that a fair statement? Okay, just so you see. You know, I don't think we're asking for this on a monetary basis, and monetary basis is not a reason for a variance. I believe that Mr. Ponzio's testimony, and you'll have to weigh it. You know, I grew up in the Parkway, and I think all Margate's beautiful. In fact, when I moved back, I actually wanted to move in the Parkway, and my wife fought me, and I actually like it more, the smaller lots with a commercial section, because there's more to do, and it's not as isolated. But I think the bottom line is, I think we all know the Parkway is extremely unique. It has a marginal access road. Those lots are bigger. To me, the best reason is it's a transition area. If the board, you know, we'd prefer to keep it exactly as it is. If the board feels that it's a better planning alternative to have that easement and eliminate that one, it is only one driveway. The other 2 homes would definitely enter from Kenyon and from Lancaster Avenue, but we believe the 3 lots make sense. I mean, after all, you're right up against a church. It just doesn't call for large lot zoning in that particular location. I don't agree that when you make the left-hand or the right-hand turn off of Jerome Avenue, that's the Parkway. It really is different. The Parkway starts where the Parkway starts. And we believe that it's a good transition. It can be granted without substantial detriment. There are no objectors here. And the other thing you have to consider is directly across the street, you're looking at commercial development. So 3 lots is going to be very, very compatible. And in fact, I think there was a statement made that there's no blocks where there are more than 2. If you start to go on the other side of Jerome Avenue, there are blocks where there's more than 2 lots block to block on Ventnor Avenue. So for all those reasons, we would respectfully request that you consider these variances. And as I said, if that access on Ventnor Avenue seems to be a problem, we would be willing to consider the easement on that rear lot. And if there's any questions of me, be happy to answer them. We're willing to agree to all the conditions in Mr. McLarnin's and the Remington verdict report. Thank you.
Jack, I think you really need to make a decision. Either you're asking for the variance for the street parking driveway on Ventnor Avenue, which we never approved, or you're taking that away and getting an easement, which we have approved. That's your call.
Well, I guess if you never approved it, we shouldn't be asking you to approve it. We'll withdraw the request for that one variance.
So the driveway variance is withdrawn at this point?
Yeah.
I mean, I would also, not that I mean, I'm sure you know this already, but I mean, if you were thinking about doing the easement, which I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, but maybe you should have some board discussion on that. Maybe the thoughts of the board would help. Probably you need to carry it because we probably like to see plans. And the other part is that with a notification, if people came to inspect the plans, that if that wasn't included, and I think that's substantial enough change, that probably we're going to need to hear that if you make that amendment, I'm saying.
Well, I don't, you know, I would respectfully say that I don't think the easement is that substantial of a change, because the driveway is gonna come, was gonna come off of, I guess in this case would be Kenyon Avenue anyhow, right? So,
I understand it, but I would think maybe that's just, I think it's a substantial enough change for the neighbors if there's going to be an easement running the length of a full block, especially.
well, no, it would only be, it's not gonna be a through block connection. It would only
Okay.
go from Kenyon to the middle lot,
I got you, okay.
because the other, yeah,
And the other lot would have, the one off Lancaster would just be a driveway?
correct.
Okay. Even so, I still think with that, it's substantial of enough change tonight that I would say that's going to be difficult. And not just for the board, for me to recommend it to the board, but really for the applicants, because you're looking, I think, just, this is my opinion, doing this stuff for a long time, you're leaving yourself open to some problems with making that type, in my opinion, making that type of amendment on the night of the meeting without having plans that could be viewed by the public beforehand if they decided to do that. That's just my opinion, but I'll leave it like it is for you, Jack.
No,
No driveway on Ventnor
Yep.
Avenue.
No driveway.
Well,
Yes. Yes.
One for the easement, one for the house.
Yes.
well, no, it'd be a common driveway easement. It would be a common driveway, right? Common drive to service. Yeah, go ahead.
But they still have to come back, correct, Mr. Chairman?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll leave
I'm
it
gonna talk to him.
I'll leave it up to the board, but I mean, if the board doesn't feel that they need to view any of the plans for the easement, where it's going to affect, where it's going to start, how wide it's going to be.
Stan, we have to follow your direction on that. You can't leave it up to us. We have to follow
Yeah.
you.
My opinion is I think the board needs to see a plan for that. And
So with the engineer-
I actually think it's better for not only the board, for everybody here, if an approval is made for that, because to have it made without that plan, I think, in my opinion, would be subject to some problems on appeal if anyone decided to do that.
Stan, we have 8 cases for March.
Okay.
Well, they wouldn't have to represent the whole thing, just
Right.
the easement real quick and say, vote.
Into
It would be a continuation of it. And I'll leave it up to the applicant what they want to do.
Well, just a question, could we possibly get some input from the board as to whether the general, I mean, it's not a formal vote or anything, but just a consensus of whether that easement's important, and if, that they think it's a good idea at least, or some direction? Because we'd have to renotice and redo the plans and that kind of thing.
If this could be all supposition, I think it's gonna be a close vote. If you eliminate the easement, I think if you're gonna lose some votes, and this is just supposition, I
No, I
think you're
understand. I
would lose a
appreciate your
vote or
input, Mr.
two
Chairman.
if you leave the driveway on Ventnor Avenue. But who knows?
You're right. No, that's fair.
But I don't have any problem, wouldn't have any problem with the board discussing their thoughts on
Yeah.
the alternative plans.
All right, we're going to do a 5-minute recess and chat, and then we'll go from there.
Can I record?
Yes. Okay, we're going to get back to...
Back on the record.
All right, we're back on the record. I had discussions with Mr. Plachter, and I believe there's going to be a request for a continuation, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think the continuation, the request is to March 20th. It's the night we're going to hear the master plan. We're going to squeeze this on also. He's going to renotice
Yes.
and submit the plans, the amended plans at this point, 10 days before, just like the statute requires, so public can inspect those.
That is
Is that
correct.
fair?
Yes.
And it's a waiver of any statutory period of
Yes, we would, we would waive the time for decision up until the March 20th date, so there's no question about automatic approval or anything like that.
Okay, I appreciate that, so,
Thank you.
all right, I appreciate it. Anyone have any questions about that? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you very much.
We still have more stuff.
We still have other things on the
We still
agenda.
have some stuff on the agenda for the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I can't promise. I put mine in the car and then put it back.
Patterson's mad.
Oh, he's a student.
We're gonna go, we're gonna roll, let's go. Wait to see, yeah, all right. Okay.
All right, I think you're going to be up next, Mr. Weiser.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to give whoa, this is new. Just wanted to give everybody an update on the master plan. I think some of you have received the document in draft form via email. We are on a pace to have it, it's being printed now. It will be delivered to Joanna. I'm saying tomorrow, it better be delivered tomorrow. I'm being told it will be delivered tomorrow. And then it will be delivered to you, and we are on board to have a public hearing on the 20th before or after, I don't know how we're going to feather it in with the application, the carryover of the application you just heard. But we have the land use plan element, the housing plan element, the economic development piece, the sustainability piece, a couple other pieces. All of it will be in the document. It will be delivered to you, and we look forward to your comments and questions, and with any luck, adoption on the 20th.
Stu,
Pardon me?
I can't hear you.
Time of day on the 20th?
It's your
It's
meeting,
the
so
microphone.
With the meeting, we decided the meeting's going to be on March 20th at 6:30 PM. I need time to notify, there's certain statutory requirements for me to notify a bunch of different entities and have public notice of it. So we need 10 days for that. And I would need, Mr. Weiser, if you could maybe email me the plan so I could put it on disk, because I got to serve the county with a copy.
Oh, sure,
The actual
absolutely.
photos. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Stu, I have a specific question because
Sure.
I keep meaning to ask you and I'll forget, and you'll be gone before the meeting's over.
No problem.
Did you ever address these undersized lots having to meet a FAR requirement? They had to be smaller houses. We had discussed that.
We
So it
had
would be
discussed
scattered
it,
throughout.
and we have recommendations in there. As you recall, the meat of that will be done as part of the ordinance changes, and the master plan has to be adopted before we get to the ordinance changes.
I just wanted to know if it hasn't been overlooked.
It has not been overlooked.
Fine, that's all I needed, thank you.
I will double check with Ryan, but that, I'm pretty sure that has not been overlooked. So with no questions for me, I'll say good night.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
What else we got? The pool thing?
Pool thing. Meanwhile, there's pools coming in left and right. Anyhow, board members, I asked you for an interpretation of the ordinance. I'll give you my take on it. As you are aware, pools are coming in for just a zoning approval through my office, and then they go to Jim's office for construction permits. In the past, they've been counted as landscape coverage, which means you can have a 20% lot coverage with landscaping and put a pool in there and reduce the landscaping to 5% or 10%, even less than the required, with no consequences. To me, I'm having a personal issue reviewing it that way, because the way the ordinance reads is, as you can see, minimum total landscape coverage in Schedule B1 says 35% of the total area has to be vegetative ground cover. Look at page 2 I submitted with section 175-26, specific design standards, landscaping. All residential lots shall have a minimum of 35% of the lot landscaped. All areas not occupied by buildings, parking areas, patios, walkways, and or any other impervious surface shall be suitably landscaped. No landscaping shall interfere with the required site triangles. Such landscaping minimum of 35% may be reduced in the minimum extent required to accommodate stairs, steps, ADA compliant ramps, blah, blah, blah. However, such percentage shall be lower than 30% of the lot, until such time as this chapter is amended to conform with the final firm map. And that's nowhere in here does it say swimming pools are exempt. Go down to definitions, section 175-2, landscaping. For the purpose of determining compliance with the minimum landscape requirements in city's residential zone, landscaping shall be limited to vegetative cover, including grass, shrubs, and trees. Areas devoted to parking and walkways, driveways, and patios shall not count toward this requirement, whether impervious or not. Go down to the definition of impervious coverage. Any material which generally reduces or prevents absorption of stormwater into the ground, including but not limited to buildings, parking areas, driveways, sidewalks, paving, and patios. In my opinion, pools count as impervious coverage. Runoff, by definition, is not included. We may amend the ordinance by subcommittee to make it easier to approve pools, but in my opinion, we're allowing the reduction of landscape coverage to accommodate pools, which is totally against the ordinance. And I'm asking your opinion on record, if you agree with that. Should the ordinance be amended? Or first of all, do you agree with my interpretation? Second of all, should the ordinance be looked at by subcommittee to better accommodate pools? I did send an email out yesterday where I approved the pool, where it showed the pool in harmony with the landscape coverage. Both areas are met. It can be done without a variance. But what's happening, as you see, we're jamming these large pools in small areas on small lots. And to me, it's you're not meeting the landscape requirements and impervious coverage requirements.
What you sent out, Roger, I thought.
Could you speak
Microphone,
into
please.
What Roger sent out was what I thought we had voted on that night. Up
No.
to 3 feet all the way around it and 6 feet to the fence. That's not what we voted on that night?
No, we did, but this has nothing to do with that.
I understand that.
Right.
Roger sent out shows exactly what I just said.
Okay.
And that's what I thought we voted on that night. And then when the ordinance came out, it's completely different. I know what he's doing with the coverage and all, but the whole pool thing is a mess.
I mean, my interpretation of it legally is that they don't count. I mean, pools are impervious.
Impervious.
they're a concrete base.
Absolutely.
Right.
How's that impervious?
Right, but we've been.
It is impervious.
We've been approved, I mean, this is the first time this ever came up.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Right?
No, it's not.
I argued it for years with Ruben.
But
did?
nobody listens to you, Clem.
I
gave up.
Roger Rubin said because it collects the rainwater and because of evaporation, the rainwater replaces evaporation instead of that, he counted it as impervious. What's happening is the abuse that's happening now. Everybody's coming in with these tiny little pools that are taking up the entire yard, and it's being abused. And at this point, it's what Roger's it's not like Ponzio saying this is my opinion. This is pretty cut and dry and black and white that you can't do it. But to leave no room for compromise, yeah.
But there is room.
I would have no problem enforcing this 100% right now, and a subcommittee get together and see if we can come up with some better. It seems every time we have a pool, we're arguing about it. It's 6 feet, 3 feet, this and that. But with what I'm seeing now, with these pools that are going in and what they're doing to the yards and the lack of landscaping, I would have no problem enforcing this as it is until we can come up with more definitive rules. And if they meet this, like the one he showed the other day, we're not banning pools here.
The equipment's another issue.
Huh?
The equipment is another issue.
Well, we're addressing
Roger.
that. We're in process of addressing that.
10-foot by 20-foot pool, that's 200 square feet. It does not count as ground coverage. 35% ground coverage.
It's counted as being grass.
Yeah.
I haven't mowed a pool too recently, but I don't think anybody, unless it's full of algae.
Roger, just as a clarification, because I thought about this after we had talked about it, and the reason they were counting pools for collecting water was because of all the flooding in the streets in Margate. So the intent of our original ordinance back in 2000, when we were doing this, was, okay, we're not getting concrete with impervious and sending all the water into the street and flooding out all our neighborhoods. So the pool became a collection tank, like almost a water system in Hawaii. And the intent of that as just pervious coverage was to keep the water from going into the drainage
Right.
and the sewer systems.
That was
Not
Roger's argument all along.
Right, not repercolating the ground. The landscaping, that's a little different.
I mean.
But even, the argument is, by definition of impervious, reduces or prevents absorption. You're removing that entire area of absorption of water.
Yes, but you're removing it from, because.
Look, I've designed retention and detention basins. I understand the
that,
concept
but
of it.
If you had not any pools there and you had the pervious coverage, all that water's gonna run to the street. It's never gonna be absorbed into our ground. Once we get a heavy rain, your ground's saturated, it's not going down quick. So the grass part, the landscaping, I agree with. This one's kind of like borderline. I don't know how much of it.
Well, one way to address the ordinance is addressing impervious coverage.
Is what, Roger?
Is addressing impervious coverage.
And what's the intent of impervious?
The definition of it, that, and to allow,
Just say the pool doesn't count as no ground.
well, it doesn't, it shouldn't. That's the way it reads, but that's the way, it hasn't been interpreted that way, and I'm having a hard time reducing grass area and landscape area to accommodate a pool.
I wrap your hands around it.
I'm not anti-pool, but we're losing a lot of area that's grass.
In my experience, most of the places where I sit, in 3 or 4 places, we pools, Roger's recommendation is what it is in most other municipalities. Is that the pools don't count. No.
It's not
No.
landscape.
It's impervious. It goes by the definition right here.
What other townships
Pools don't collect.
What other townships do you work for?
Ventnor,
Right.
Summers Point, Egg Harbor Township.
There you go, answers our question.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Egg Harbor Township obviously has a lot bigger lot area. Ventnor, I don't think for some reason, I don't see a lot of pools going in Ventnor. You know, I
do.
Do you?
Yeah, well, not so much as Margate, but they do.
Right.
Depends where they are. I mean,
It
you
counts
have to look
against,
on the heights.
it's as impervious coverage.
I mean,
The islands counted against impervious coverage. It's not like you're dealing with something that you have a lot of land in Bay Harbor Township or Galloway or something. It's totally different when you're on the
Look,
island.
there's
Yeah,
several
because
ways to
I agree.
handle this.
The
I
lots
mean,
are smaller, right.
one is you can, all right, if your landscape coverage is reduced by 10%, you have to design some type of recharge system on site to accommodate that.
But these are things that we can do in
Well, in
the
certain areas you
subcommittee.
can. You could do a shallow system.
These are things that you can bring up that we can decide and then bring before the
Subcommittee.
board.
Right.
And how about in the meantime, enforce it like it is? We
That's
have
what
a big problem with a lot of pools coming in right now that are crazy.
They're dangerous.
They're right next to the houses. They're,
Well, what you're seeing now is building
That was
plans coming in.
Roger's interpretation. He can say it doesn't.
The definitions, though, actually, that we actually have in place.
Contradict the way they were
contradict the way
approved.
it's been interpreted here.
We can right now say, interpret it this way until we come
That's
up
what
with new rules.
And that's what he's asking for, right?
Yeah.
We go to a vote on this?
Yes.
Agree with it?
So what's the vote? Would you say what the vote is? Would we interpret it this way instead of put it on this?
Yeah.
That's what Stan's doing.
Well, it's an interpretation he's asking for, so we're just trying to clarify for our board professionals that the definition of impervious coverage includes pools. Okay?
And for landscape.
And pools do not count as
But I mean, if you read the
landscape.
definition, it says any material which generally reduces or prevents absorption of stormwater, and generally including but not limited to buildings, parking areas, driveways, sidewalks, paving, and patios. What he's saying in the including but not limited to part is that it's pools. Right, Roger? Pools, although it's specifically not in it or included in that definition.
Pools do not
Under our
count as grass
interpretation.
cover, yes.
So we're gonna count pools, ponds, because people have ponds in their yard that are,
They're impervious.
they're
also.
impervious too.
They are. I mean, under the
Well,
definition.
ponds, they don't have to come in for a permit, but for a pool, I think.
So forever, that it's never been enforced. And then we're just gonna turn the key and enforce it. I don't agree with that. I think that we should.
But that's the way
we
it's
should-
written.
I know, but, you know,
Ignore all stop signs. We don't mean, we mean them take them down.
9 votes.
9 votes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think Mike kind of has a little bit of a point, but I agree with Roger. I would say that come up with a thing and then send a notice out to all your builders attorneys saying, as of March 1st, April 1st.
We're going to enforce the rules that are already on the books?
Here's what's happening. We're having plans for houses that don't require any variances come in front of Jimmy and I. They always show optional pool. So these are spec houses. So somebody comes in, all right, the house is almost done, they look at the plans, I think I want this optional pool. And I clearly write on all my plans, this approval does not include any pool, whether optional or not, because as you know, the pool they build is not always what they're applying for. So I think we really got to crack down, and there are other options. That garage they built, maybe they won't build a garage anymore. They'll have the pool instead of the garage. And you still meet your landscape requirements.
Mike, what are your concerns?
my concern is that forever, it hasn't been enforced. I'm not saying that what Rogers, according to the, or what you just read,
Ordinance.
is
The law.
right. But, to just like flip the switch and, I also think that we have small lots here, and I think we bust people's balls enough with, is that being recorded? With a lot of the other stuff we have. I think that, yes, it has to be addressed. We have to come up with something, some type of, I think there should be some type of compromise if it's a pool. But, do we have to make that change now, or when are
We're not
we all
making a
going to
change.
get
We're
together
actually
and
following
talk
the law.
about this kind of stuff?
Mike, I've been out house shopping with my sister. These pools that are going in these backyards are dangerous. They're at the foot of steps. They're being dropped in areas that should be a deck. And I would hate to see the city liable because we didn't follow our own law. And we will work on adopting something that will allow pools to become part of people's needs. It's not, but I think if you look at them, the number of dangerous situations that are being allowed because we're not following the law, we're following an
Well,
interpretation.
even if you, okay, so let's say,
It may only take 6 months to change this.
huh?
It may only take 6 months to change this to the way the public wants it to be. It's not, we're saying no to pools, you will never be able to put another pool in.
I understand that.
And if the
But you are
committees-
saying that to a lot of people because, they're not gonna, it's just not gonna fly. It's not gonna fly. And the other thing you say about the danger situation, all right, so let's say we enforce this thing and somebody builds a pool and in order to fit that pool in and meet the landscape requirements, then they are gonna push it more towards the house. Is there any problem with people having steps that lead down from their deck right to the pool? Is that an issue? Is that a code issue?
Go look at 8705 Monmouth Avenue. There's a brand-new house, Pirano's building, and in the backyard, there is a, 8x10 pool that just got approved, Raj, I think
I can't remember. There's been so many.
I asked the guy, where's the shoehorn? Because I don't know how you got this thing in here.
We have the one on, where is it?
Osborne.
Osborne Avenue. They're dangerous.
Mike,
And we're not following our laws.
I've been arguing what you've been arguing with Roger for a month now, but it's not we're all of a sudden changing the rules. All of a sudden, we're coming in with all these pools that really don't fit the house, don't fit the yard. It's become a selling point to have these, what are they called, Realtor? Dipping pools? Some weird name they have for them. It's become a selling point, and all the spec houses, they're throwing these things in.
Right.
So it's the market that's changed and not the board so much. We're kind of reacting to the change in the market.
Right.
And I'm all for saying, I don't agree with just say you can't count water as vegetation. But I think there's a compromise. If you're going to have a pool, you have to have
Yeah,
this.
I
You have to
agree.
have extra things,
I'm
and
all
that
for
can
the
be worked out.
compromise thing.
That could be
but-
worked out, but in the meantime, we have kind of an emergency with everybody putting in these pools that aren't appropriate.
Right.
So that's why I suggested we enforce it as it's written here from now on, and she had a good point about if we don't.
Rich, if
Yeah.
what you're saying is correct, and it is the law right now, enforce it, it's your job.
Well, he wants us to approve
But I
it.
mean, we don't have.
Okay, so may I have a motion on this vote, whether Roger should enforce the law the way it's written? And a subcommittee to address it.
Which is not in the ordinance anyway.
It will be.
That's what,
I know it will be, but can you make that part of this?
I don't know if we can change
No,
the ordinance.
no.
right
Can't
now.
change the ordinance.
No,
we can't change the ordinance right now. but We can put that on for discussion.
that's gonna happen.
We can make a recommendation.
That's gonna happen. That will happen, but we can't do it now.
The motion would be to make pools be interpreted as impervious coverage.
And not land,
And not landscaping.
Well, that's pervious coverage.
Yeah, but just make it clear. Just make it clear,
It's being counted as landscape coverage.
Right.
and it won't be anymore.
Right.
May I have someone make that?
I'll make that motion.
Who second? Okay.
Jimmy.
Tom Collins?
Yes.
Clem Wozleski?
Yes.
Mike Cristaldi?
Yes.
Margaret Gubernalty?
Yes.
Jim Galantino?
Absolutely.
Mike Richmond?
I gotta think
Put it on the front.
Look, you know what,
You're entitled to your
we are gonna come up with some type of compromise, right? Because, yeah, so I'll say yes. I'll
Craig
compromise and say
Palmisano?
yes.
Yes.
David Carter,
Yes.
Rich Patterson.
Yes.
It passes 9-0.
I forego my vote. I take back my vote.
If you want, I won't come in
Remy,
March, you can vote.
just ask her anyway, would you?